Chapter 1827. The Hydra was moving slowly on the sea. The yacht was on autopilot. "Hi, I'm Kalon." Kalon walked over to Xin Li. Lisa and Mo Air also followed them. "Hi, I'm Xin Li." Lisa moved closer to Xin Li and asked, "Did the president agree?" Xin Li shook her head. "My uncle said that he'll only let me join the supernatural organization after I finish school. These adults are all like that. They don't care about our personal will." Kalon drank, depressed. Xin Li looked at Kalon. "You're not a member of the supernatural organization either?" Kalon's father is an elite. He's the oldest member, Morse said. "But there's a rule that if a member's family wants to join, both the member and the president must agree." "You're lucky," Kalon said. "You only need Mr. Chun to agree. Then can we join another organization?" Xin Li asked. Everyone looked at Xin Li and couldn't help but roll their eyes. "Sure," Lisa said, "but the president will destroy that organization later. In all of North America, no. In all of America, no organization can go against the president's will." Xin Li thought of the battle last night. He'd faced the 5 legendary Romani Pillar Kings. In the end, he'd completed a one-sided massacre. Xin Li also had a new understanding of the power of the spiritual world. In the past, she'd only thought that her father was powerful. At that time, she'd thought that there was no one more powerful than her father. She'd seen her father as her idol. However, during Warren's invasion, his father finally fell in front of her. The president is a very controlling person. If you're not related to him, he won't interfere. But if you're related to him, you have to listen to his orders, Morse said. Plus, in the L.A. area, apart from the supernatural organization, there's only the psionic team. That organization is the supernatural organization's enemy. I'm sure the president will be happy to get rid of them. There are other hostile organizations in L.A. Can't Uncle deal with them directly? That's not something that can be decided by force. It's very complicated. But if the president finds an excuse, he'll get rid of the psionic team without hesitation. But my academic performance is very poor, Xin Li said with a sad face. If I follow Uncle's request, I won't be able to join the supernatural organization. There's a way. Go to Ruan Faxaben. Mo Air suddenly had an idea and said, "Him? Is he from the supernatural organization?" "Yes, he's our alchemist. Maybe he knows how to make some potions to increase intelligence." "Which one is he?" "That's the guy with messy hair." Moore pointed at Ruan Faxben, who was eating and drinking on a plywood not far away. Ruan Faxi was definitely the most aloof member in the association. It was mainly because of his habit of only coming out of the laboratory once every few days. Therefore, most of the time, his body carried a foul stench. It wasn't just because of the smell of his own sweat, but also because his body always carried the smell of some experimental materials. "Luong, come here for a moment." Ruan Faxi looked up at Moore and the others, wiping the grease on his face on his clothes. "What for?" "Hello, Mr. Luong. I am Xin Li. I know you. You're the president's adopted daughter, right?" "Luong, Xin Li wants a potion that can increase her intelligence. I wonder if you can get it." "Magic potions can increase magic power directly," Ruan Faxi said. "Other than magic potions that can directly increase magic power, other types of potions have the effect of fair trade. In other words, they convert your other strengths into the abilities you need. For example, the wisdom potion can increase intelligence, but weaken magic power." "Xin Li, do you want it?" Everyone looked at each other. They didn't expect the intelligence potion to have such a restriction. Then why isn't the magic potion limited? Of course. What materials do magic potions need? The most important is the skeleton of a powerful magic creature. Therefore, magic potions aren't regular magic potions. They're more like supplements. Is there no other way? Xin Li obviously wouldn't sacrifice her magic power to increase intelligence. "There is," Ruan Faxi said. "The golden apple, the fruit of wisdom." "You mean the golden apple in Greek mythology?" "Yes, it's the golden apple in Greek mythology." Ruan Faxi looked at Xin Li. "If you can find the legendary golden apple, you'll gain wisdom." In Greek mythology, the golden apple was a gift from a tree that Gaia, the mother of the earth, brought back from the west coast as a wedding gift for Zeus and Hera. Zeus planted it in the sacred garden, and it was guarded by his 3 daughters, Aegle, Erusha, Hesperides, and the 100-headed dragon. In Greek mythology, the golden apple appeared twice. The first time was when Hercules completed the 11th of the 12 great feats, which was to obtain the golden apple under the watch of the 3 goddesses and the 100-headed dragon. The second time was during the wedding of the human hero Peleus and the ocean goddess Thetis. Eris, the goddess of conflict and discord, didn't receive the wedding invitation. Thus, she purposely gave a golden apple to the guests and claimed that it was for the most beautiful and powerful goddess. Queen Hera, goddess of wisdom Athena, and goddess of love and beauty Aphrodite didn't give in to each other. They all believed that they were the ones who deserved the golden apple. This golden apple eventually led to a war. Troy was destroyed by the Spartans. Can the golden apple gain wisdom? More ask. In Greek mythology, it doesn't say that eating the golden apple will give you wisdom. The golden apple can give you the ability you want, Ruan Faxi said. It's not limited to wisdom. It can also be your magic or other abilities. It's called the omnipotent fruit. But legends are just legends. It doesn't mean that the golden apple really exists. The Scarlet Mission includes finding the golden apple, Ruan Faxi said. Since the Scarlet Church believes that the golden apple exists, it's very likely that it does. Are there any clues? In the British Museum, there's an ancient book called the Book of Prometheus. It said that this book records everything from the beginning to the end of Greek mythology. Chapter 1828. Stealing the Book of Prometheus from the British Museum should be more difficult than studying, right? Chun Zhao said coolly as he walked over. Chun Zhao glanced at Lisa. She was a genius girl. Plus, he and Lisa had stolen from the museum before. So, Chun Zhao knew how difficult it was to steal from a museum. Chun Zhao heard the kids' secret discussion. Xin saw Chun Zhao walk over. Clearly, he heard their conversation. If Chun Zhao knew, it would be difficult for her to complete the task. Lisa immediately looked away, afraid that Chun Zhao would notice something. Chun Zhao glanced at Lisa and then at Ruan Faxben. Moore was a hothead. He was also here, but he was definitely a pawn. And Moore was a rash young man. Although he was also here, he was definitely being used as a chess piece by someone else. They were definitely acting. They probably wanted to trick Xin Li into finding the golden apple. They were definitely putting on an act. They were probably trying to trick Xin Li into finding the golden apple. They were definitely acting. They probably wanted to trick Xin Li into finding the golden apple. Tricking Xin Li was different from facing Chun Zhao. Haha, I was joking. Ruan Faxben laughed loudly. Xin Li, don't take it to heart. Xin Li clearly thought that it was because of Chun Zhao. Only Ruan would say something sarcastic. Uncle, give me half a year. In half a year, I have to find the golden apple. If I can't find it, I'll go back to school. Xin Li looked at Chun Zhao seriously. After a moment of silence, Chun Zhao said, I can give you half a year, but you also have to agree to 3 of my requests. What requests? First, you have to make a phone call every day. Second, you have to carry a tracking device. Third, you can't kill anyone, Chun Zhao said. If you agree to these 3 requests, I'll give you half a year. If you refuse, you'll have to stay at home obediently. Okay, I agree. Lisa, Ruan Faxben, Moore, since you 3 are so active in persuading Xin Li, follow her. Don't even think about escaping. Lisa's and Ruan's cheeks twitched. This wasn't in their plan. In fact, their goal was to influence Chun Zhao through Xin Li. They wanted Chun Zhao to be part of their plan. In the end, Chun Zhao did intervene, but not in the way they had planned. The two met Chun Zhao's eyes. There was a threatening look in Chun Zhao's eyes. The two of them could only put on a long face and admit defeat. Kellen immediately shouted, Mr. Chun, what about me? What about me? Fuck off. Go finding Elite. I have no objections if he agrees. If he has objections, then I can't do anything about it. Mr. Chun, let me go too. Help me talk to my dad. He'll definitely listen to you. Fuck off. Chen Zhao didn't want to get involved in Colin's family matters. After all, Colin not only had an elite behind him, but also his mother, Amy. Moreover, there was a certain amount of risk involved in this matter. Chen Zhao couldn't influence an elite, not even the slightest bit affected. As the saying goes, better safe than sorry. If Colin was hurt because of this, Chen Zhao would have to bear the responsibility. He didn't want to face his parents' questions. Of course, if Xin Li really wanted to go, Chen Zhao would do his best to ensure her safety. Apart from her personal weapons, Chen Zhao would also contact Mary, the 23rd generation. Mary had wanted to build a good relationship with Chen Zhao for a long time. It was just that in their first few interactions, Chen Zhao didn't have a good relationship with her. So, Chen Zhao believed that the 23rd Blood Mary would be happy to accept this task. Roar! Just then, a cheer came from the stern. Klaus and an elite were standing there. They were both wearing swimming trunks and in a diving position. We agreed that no magic is allowed, Klaus said in a low voice. I don't need magic to deal with you. Portia stood in front of the 3-story fence and watched the commotion below. These people were really energetic. Moreover, they actually dared to swim in the sea under the night sky. Uncle and Elite, Uncle Klaus, I want to compete with you too. Gerlin ran to the two in her swimsuit and stood at the stern. Portia was speechless. She looked left and right, trying to find Chen Zhao. She wanted Chen Zhao to control Gerlin. Wasn't that too much? It was one thing for the two adults to go into the sea at night. Gerlin wanted to join the fun too. This wasn't Bright Moon Beach. It was the sea with strong winds and waves. Klaus and Angelite's faces darkened too. Compete with Gerlin? It would be embarrassing if they won, and even more embarrassing if they lost. Of course, they couldn't lose. Unless Chen Zhao helped them cheat. But Chen Zhao was definitely too lazy to interfere. Then, the two of them would cooperate with each other. Klaus, hung elite, Chen Zhao said, walking to the stern. Play how you want. Don't take care of Gerlin. Gerlin was a bit lonely at home. In fact, she could swim more than she could at home. Apart from a few children and King Kong, who was afraid of water, the others could swim and weren't slower than Gerlin. But they all gave in to Gerlin. Chen Zhao didn't think that this was good for Gerlin. Dad, I won't lose. Don't cry if you lose. Just wait and see. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. If you lose, you'll have to clear the plates later. I won't lose. I definitely won't lose. Okay, get ready. Little Gerlin, get ready. Don't talk anymore, Feilai ordered. 3, 2, 1, start. Gerlin's reaction wasn't slow. She grasped the timing very well. Klaus and Elite listened to Chen Zhao's words. But it was impossible for them to not go easy on her. At least, the two of them were slower than Gerlin when they jumped into the water. It was obvious. One was a seasoned veteran, while the other was an enhanced spiritualist who specialized in speed. How could they be slower than Gerlin? But if they really started swimming, they'd quickly catch up to Gerlin. This was the difference in their nature. Gerlin's physique was good, but that was only relative to children her age. It wasn't that she could be compared to adults now. Of course, in terms of swimming ability, Gerlin was indeed not worse than a regular person. Just then, a wave several meters high rose in front of Gerlin, Klaus, and Elite. Apart from Portia, everyone knew that it was Chen Zhao. Don't hurt Gerlin, Feilai whispered. No, I know what I'm doing. With a splash, Gerlin was slapped into the sea. Klaus and Elite hesitated for a moment, wondering if they should dive down to save Gerlin. But Chen Zhao waved his hand at the stern. Gerlin was always under his control. He even knew her condition like the back of his hand. Chapter 1829. 10 seconds later, little Gerlin suddenly came out of the water. But he couldn't figure out the direction for a long time. He looked left and right on the surface of the sea, and finally saw the Hydra not far away. But Klaus and Elite were nowhere to be seen. Little Gerlin felt her nose sting. She secretly wiped her tears. Then she swam toward the Hydra. But Gerlin couldn't catch up to the Hydra yet. Suddenly, Gerlin's feet seemed to touch something in the water. Then the thing lifted Gerlin up so that she could stand on the surface of the sea. Amon? Ah, it's Amon. Gerlin cried in surprise. She hadn't seen Amon in a long time, although she couldn't see Amon's full appearance. Just from the touch, she could tell that it was Amon. The 5 tiger generals and the dolphin family all felt different. Only when standing on Amon's back could she feel as solid as standing on land. Portia saw Gerlin standing on the surface of the sea. There seemed to be a huge shadow moving under the water. Portia couldn't help but feel nervous. She kept staring at the shadow under Gerlin's feet. The shadow moved all the way to the stern of the Hydra and suddenly sank into the water. Chen Zhao pulled Gerlin onto the boat. "Dad, Amon's back. Amon sent me back just now." "Amon?" Portia's face was filled with confusion. Who was Amon? Is that the thing in the water? It felt bigger than a shark. Was it a whale? Portia was no longer surprised by Chen Zhao's whale rearing. He could even raise sharks, let alone whales. Whales were recognized as more intelligent than sharks. They were the most intelligent species in the ocean. An important factor to judge a creature's intelligence was whether it had rationality other than killing when facing creatures weaker than itself. For example, killer whales would treat prey as toys. This was an expression of rationality. It wouldn't just treat other creatures as food. Perhaps for killer whales, simple survival was too boring. Killer whales were so powerful that they didn't need to think about food anymore. Even the largest creatures in the ocean were on their list of food. So now, they needed to think about how to improve their quality of life. Entertainment was actually a way to improve one's quality of life. After humans were no longer affected by food and the environment, they began to develop further in society. Of course, at the same time, with enough food and a stable environment, human intelligence also began to increase by leaps and bounds. From the perspective of biological evolution, this kind of evolution was natural. The orca's current intelligence and their dominance in the ocean were already close to the primitive social form of humans. However, the killer whale could no longer grow. This was because the development of mankind had caused them to lose the space to grow. If humans were still in a feudal society, perhaps the killer whales would have a chance. However, ever since mankind had entered the stage of technological explosion, their martial prowess had increased by tens of thousands of times. Even if the killer whales had the same intelligence as humans, they couldn't reverse this relationship. Just like the movie Rise of the Planet of the Apes, it was impossible to happen in reality. Could one or a few chimpanzees with the same intelligence as humans really overthrow the rule of humans? How is this possible? Even within the same species, humans would kill each other due to skin color, let alone another species. Of course, a movie was still a movie. It was just an artistic process and an exaggeration of the plot. That would never happen in real life. Even if the leaders of a human army were a group of monkeys, they wouldn't lose. Actually, Amon wasn't the only one back. Little Nine was back too. Today was the monthly payday. Chen Zhao threw 2 demonic crystals into the water. The Hydra stopped. Portia looked at the vast night sky. Weren't they worried about Klaus and Ungalit, who'd been swimming for an hour? Portia knew the two and had been worried for them for a long time. In the end, the two swam back after an hour and a half. Without using magic, Ungalit might not be Klaus' match. Of course, even so, he wasn't weaker than Klaus. The difference wasn't obvious. Little Gerlin ran up to them and threatened, "Uncle Klaus, Uncle Ungalit, I'll definitely defeat you in the future." Then, Gerlin suffered from Chen Zhao's revenge. She pinched her face and flicked her nose. Little Gerlin escaped pathetically. Amon found a sunken ship at the bottom of the sea. It seems to be transporting gold. It's more than 30 nautical miles from here. What do you think? Are you interested in going? Everyone looked at Chen Zhao with shining eyes. Even Portia was a bit dazed. Sunken ship? Transporting gold? Roar. I'm going. I'm going to get rich. Lisa yelled, "Treasure hunt! Treasure hunt! I'm going to salvage the sunken ship." Eric was even more excited. After all, he'd just learned a sea creature form and was worried about where to use it. He didn't expect to have a chance to use it now. The others were also very excited. Who wouldn't love gold? Feilai walked up to Chen Zhao. "Darling, is there a lot of gold in that sunken ship?" "Probably more than $10 million in gold and a lot of silver coins." The Hydra sailed toward the sunken ship. After 2 hours, the kids all went to sleep. However, the party on the ship continued. Portia couldn't help but wonder if a few of them would drown when they got into the water, considering how much they drank. "We're here. This is the place. If you want to get rich, go into the water." One by one, they were ready. Except for a few, the rest were wearing diving suits. Not everyone could leave the air. Portia didn't want to miss this opportunity, so she also wore a diving suit. However, the sunken ship was more than 100 meters deep. Portia couldn't go any further after diving 20 meters. She could only float to the surface, depressed. Then, she looked at Chun Zhao's subordinates. They were all diving down crazily. There were even one or two who didn't even wear diving suits. They were a bunch of lunatics. Portia floated to the surface. Feilai pulled her up. "Portia, come up," Feilai said, smiling. "You can't beat them." Portia also realized this. Even if she wore a diving suit, she couldn't beat them. She really didn't know how they did it. Chun Zhao sat on the railing with his feet dangling outside, enjoying the sea breeze. "Boss, aren't you going down to get some? You could dive down too, right?" "If I needed it, I wouldn't have told them the sunken ship's location. I'd run over myself and fish up all the gold and silver coins." Chapter 1830. Just then, a beam of light appeared on the surface of the sea. It was the light of a searchlight. A ship seemed to be approaching the Hydra. It was a fishing boat, but it was rather large. Its length and displacement were similar to the Hydra, but its tonnage was probably higher. The fishing boat stopped when it was about 100 meters away from the Hydra. The searchlight on the fishing boat shone on the Hydra. Just then, Chun Zhao heard the butler system's voice. "Master, Meryl requests to speak to you." "Meryl? That fishing boat over there?" Chun Zhao thought for a moment and picked up. "Hello, how can I help you?" "Hello, I'm Meryl's captain, Judge Bunchadian." The captain's voice came from the communicator. "Our fishing boat is going to do salvage nearby. Can you please leave this area so that Meryl's fishing net doesn't hit your boat's propeller?" "It's not an open fishing ground," Chun Zhao replied. "Captain Bunchadian, it's illegal for you to fish here, so I suggest you leave as soon as possible." On Meryl, Judge Bunchadian frowned. The people on the other boat really didn't know what was good for them. He'd already lowered his voice, but the other side still didn't know when to stop. "Boss, we still have to use force," a rough man said. "It's just a boat. What's there to hesitate about? Let's just sink it. We might even get some money." "Take out all the tools and make it clean," Judge Bunchadian said expressionlessly. On the Hydra, Portia was shocked to see the fishing boat crash over. The yacht was made of thin steel and aluminum, different from the pure steel of the fishing boat. If it crashed over, the Hydra would definitely be cut in half. After all, it was a yacht. The hull was designed for comfort. Most of the modern fishing boats were designed to withstand the strongest winds and waves. Some boats even had the ability to break ice. As long as they were equipped with an icebreaker, they could crash into the floating ice on the surface. "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" Portia screamed in fear. Glancing at Chun Zhao, she said, "The kids are sleeping." Chun Zhao nodded and turned to look at Meryl. Meryl had been under Chun Zhao's domain the entire time, within a radius of 1,000 meters and on the sea. The Meryl wanted to ram the yacht, but it was obviously thinking too much. Furthermore, there were still Amon and Little Nine in the water. Portia discovered that although the Meryl had been rushing in their direction, it hadn't gotten any closer. Looking at its posture, it was clearly charging over, and the seawater was being pushed away. How could it not be close? Portia wasn't the only one who was confused. The people on Meryl were also confused. Judging from the traces of the current, their ship is indeed moving forward, but why didn't they approach the Hydra? At that moment, Gaia floated up from the sea and jumped onto the yacht. Portia saw that Gaia was holding 2 gold bricks in her hands. Portia sucked in a cold breath. "Gaia, did you salvage this?" "Yes." Gaia took the towel from Feilai and began to wipe herself. "We have enough money to buy toys for Evans." Chun Zhao and Feilai both smiled nonchalantly. Gaia was quite famous in the entertainment industry now. Plus, she had her private business and her famous fitness center. In the supernatural organization, her value was second only to Chun Zhao. Just these 2 gold bricks were really not enough to enter her eyes. They were just here for fun. Gaia looked at Meryl. "What's with that fishing boat?" It's probably from a private salvage company. They disguised it as a fishing boat, Chun Zhao said nonchalantly. Chun Zhao wasn't guessing blindly. The boom on the fishing boat wasn't used to pull nets. It was a lifting machine. Then, the people from the supernatural organization surfaced one after another. Portia looked at them. Each of them had 1 or 2 gold bricks on them. Her eyes were all red. She didn't have the ability, but these guys were too good at diving. Some of them didn't even need equipment to dive 100 meters deep and then float up with 2 or 3 gold bricks. Boss, if they're from a salvage company, why are they disguised as fishing boats? Portia asked, confused. Of course, Chun Zhao said. Salvage companies have to pay heavy taxes if they salvage a sunken ship. If they launder money, they only have to pay 15 to 20% at most. If they pay taxes to the government, they have to pay at least 45%. Also, some sunken ships are involved in international disputes. It's very troublesome to sue them in international courts, so they naturally have to disguise themselves as fishing boats. He knew so, clearly mainly because he knew Guret. Guret's main business was piracy, but she also had other businesses. Salvage companies were one of them. Most salvage companies didn't register their business. Most salvage companies were in the business of salvaging wrecks and wrecks from the 18th and 19th centuries. Both were unpredictable businesses most of the time. The cost of salvaging wrecks was low, and they might not find them. In the past, the number of wrecks wasn't high, but it wasn't low either. They had to search with all their might. They might not even find one in a year or two. Compared to the cost of searching and salvaging, the items that could be salvaged might not even cover the cost. If taxes were included, the salvage company wouldn't even be able to make a profit. Taking a risk out of desperation was their only choice. At the moment, the people on Merrill were panicking. They realized that no matter how hard they tried, the ship couldn't get close to the yacht. Even at full power, they couldn't move it at all. They wanted to escape, but they couldn't either. The entire ship stayed where it was. What do we do now? Judge Bangchun asked anxiously. He'd been in the salvage business for more than 20 years and had never seen such a strange thing. How about we ask the boss for help? One of his men suggested. Judge Bangchun thought for a long time, but there was no other way. He could only ask the boss for help. Bangchun picked up the satellite phone. Boss, we've encountered some trouble. What trouble? We encountered a yacht that appeared at the location of our salvage operation. We negotiated with them, but they weren't willing to leave. Then, Bangchun explained the situation to Judge Liu. Yacht? What kind of yacht? A very luxurious yacht with the Hydra logo printed on the hull. Boss, is this a Hydra organization? Chapter 1831. Hey, Guret, how come you had time to call me? Chun Zhao was surprised by Guret's sudden call. Is there news from Treasure Island? There's some progress, but we're still investigating, Guret said. Chun, where are you now? Of course. Why do you ask? At home? On the boat? Guret asked. Chun Zhao was stunned. He looked at the Merrill in the distance. That fishing boat, disguised as a fishing boat, is yours? It's mine, Guret answered honestly. I found it, Chun Zhao said. It's been more than half a year. Got it. I'll have them leave now. Guret wouldn't suspect that Chun Zhao was targeting her. The two were still in their honeymoon phase. They wouldn't scheme against each other over an ordinary boat. Tell them to leave this area, Chun Zhao said. Chun Zhao let the Merrill go. Portia didn't understand what the fishing boat was doing. It was going to charge over aggressively, but now it turned around and escaped. Portia didn't know. They could only escape with Chun Zhao's permission. The group of people played until dawn. Portia was so sleepy that she went to bed by herself. The next day, when Portia woke up, she saw the deck filled with gold and silver. However, everyone's share was clearly divided. Portia ate breakfast, which was as sumptuous as usual, but she still didn't see the chef. The supernatural organization didn't go into the water anymore. They fished out most of the gold that could be found. The rest had either sunk into the mud at the bottom of the sea, or they'd been washed away by the current. Then there was some silver. Silver wasn't very valuable. At least, it wasn't high on the market. They didn't want to waste any more time on silver. The Hydra finally returned to the ship. Other than the empty-handed Portia, Everyone had a great harvest. The gold bricks all weighed 2 kilograms. Based on the current price of gold, each brick was worth $70,000 to $80,000. The gold content of these gold bricks was quite high. They should have been produced and crafted at the beginning of the last century. The more people picked up 3 or 4 gold bricks, while the less had at least one. There were more silver coins, but the price of silver was much higher than gold tea. To them, this was a huge windfall. Everyone was in a good mood, except for Portia. Portia, don't be disappointed. This is for you. Gaius stuffed a silver coin into Portia's hand as a form of consolation. Portia felt even more stifled. Exionly, are you really going to look for the golden apple? Feilai had already learned from Qin Zhao, and Qin Zhao had also agreed. However, Feilai's current identity was Exion, Li's adoptive mother. Qin Zhao still asked Exion Li to convince Feilai herself. Annie Feilai, can you agree? Actually, Qin Zhao had already told Feilai some of the reasons. Feilai was more worried about Exion Li's safety. Feilai was silent for a moment. I only have one request. I'll agree to any request, Exion Li said impatiently. He looked at Feilai with pleading eyes. If you're in danger, call your uncle. Okay, Exion Li answered without thinking. Actually, Chun and I have been asking about the legendary treasure island, Feilai said. I hope you can come with us when we go to look for it. Exion Li hugged Feilai, touched. She was in her rebellious phase. However, she was also the easiest to be touched. A person's intelligence usually reached its peak at around 12 years old. Adults only lack knowledge and a healthy worldview. Qin Zhao promised Exion Li that he would let her go out for a walk. He didn't really want her to find the golden apple. Qin Zhao just wanted her to go out and build a complete worldview. Why were university students always muddle-headed for 2 to 3 years after graduating from school? It was because they couldn't build a truly complete worldview in school. This was also why people always joked that society was the best university. However, Qin Zhao's idea was that she had to go to school and train herself. School could impart knowledge, and society could train her. Just then, Kalon ran in from outside, his face full of excitement. Feilai glanced at him. Kalon, what are you doing here? Ms. Feilai, where's Mr. Chun? Here, sunbathing in the yard. Kalon saw Qin Zhao lying in the yard. Sometimes, he really felt that Qin Zhao's lifestyle was like that of a cultivator. It was completely the lifestyle of a 70-year-old man. To any young person, sunbathing was unimaginable. Kalon ran into the yard again. Mr. Qin Zhao was dozing off. He pulled down his sunglasses and glanced at Kalon. What? Mr. Chun, my dad agreed. Agreed to what? Dad agreed to go find the golden apple with Exion Li, Lisa, and Mr. Long. Li agreed? Qin Zhao was surprised. What about your mom? She agreed too. I see. I'll call and confirm, Qin Zhao said. Qin Zhao thought that an elite wouldn't agree. After all, Kalon was studying at UCLA now. It wouldn't be easy for him to convince his parents. Qin Zhao picked up his phone and called Amy first. Elite was a spiritualist, so it was more likely that he would agree. The possibility of AI me is not high. If AI me had agreed, then Elite should have also agreed. Hey, Amy, it's Chun. Mr. Chun, did Kalon go to your place? Kalon said that you agreed to let him take half a year off and go find the golden apple. Yes, I agreed, Amy answered. Why? Mr. Chun, didn't you agree to your adopted daughter too? Since you can agree, why can't I? I have my own thoughts. Qin Zhao smiled bitterly. Qin Zhao stood up. He didn't care about his children's grades. He wanted them to have a complete worldview and a correct way of thinking. I think that you'll find a way to protect Kalon, Amy said honestly. It's good for him to go out. He's never really left an elite in my side since he was young. I can't completely guarantee his safety. There's actually a certain amount of risk involved in this matter. There's no such thing as absolute safety. Even if you're at home, there's always the possibility of disaster falling from the sky. What does an elite think? He also agreed. Actually, it was an elite who convinced me. Chapter 1832. Qin Zhao had always wondered if the girls and boys in his family had switched personalities. It wasn't just Jerlin and Larissa who were lively and active. Even Mara and Sindora were very active. Unlike the 11 or 12-year-old kids, these kids already had a clear understanding. Mara and Sindora were the youngest of Chun Zhao's adopted children. They still needed their parents' love. Chun Zhao and Fei Lai were their parents now. Chun Zhao and Fei Lai were their parents, so they naturally doted on them. After the first few days of discomfort, they started to show their carefree personalities. Binance was also very carefree, but he liked magic more. Binance was a water magician. Chun Zhao didn't know any, but he could control water. Therefore, he could also give Binance some advice on this point. 11-year-old Kilo had become a fitness maniac. His body hadn't finished puberty yet, but he had to do more training than an adult every day. His training was similar to that of a professional athlete. Didi was the only one in the family. She was a girl from a rich family. At least in the eyes of Asians, she was a typical girl from a rich family. She was shy and introverted. She talked to everyone carefully. She also helped take care of the other kids. Today, after Portia came, Chun Zhao gathered the kids and went straight to Mirror Lake. "Mr. Chun, how come you're free today?" Felwood saw the large group of kids behind Chun Zhao. "They're all my kids. I brought them here mainly to let them have some requests for their bedrooms," Chun Zhao said. "Okay, I understand." Felwood nodded. The main construction of the villa had reached the end. Next was the renovation. Didi held little Jerlin's hand. The other kids had already dashed out. Holding little Larissa in his arms, Chun Zhao looked at the unhurried Didi. "Didi, don't you want to see your bedroom as soon as possible?" "It's okay. I'll be there," Didi said. Although Didira was only 12 years old, her calm personality was even more stable than Xian Li's. It wasn't that Chun Zhao didn't like Didi, but he felt that kids should be more carefree. He could even accept Xian Li's rebellious personality. "Didi La, if all those rooms are taken by your younger siblings, don't cry when that time comes. It doesn't matter. There are many empty rooms in this villa anyway." Indeed, this villa was larger than the old one, and there were more bedrooms and functions than the old one. Standing in front of the villa, a few children surrounded a person, one after another, making a ruckus. That person had a look of despair on his face. He was the interior designer in charge of the renovation. It wasn't that he didn't know how to satisfy these children's requests. It was because he couldn't hear their request at all. He wanted to shout at the children to stop, but he didn't dare to. As the company's designer, he also knew that Chun Zhao was the company's super investor. They were all Chun Zhao's children, so he had to take good care of them. "Okay, say one by one. Don't be so noisy," Chun Zhao said. "Xian Li, you go first." While the children were pestering the interior designer, Chun Zhao received a call. "Hello, who is it?" "Hello, Mr. Chun." "Hello, Ms. Blood Mary." Chun Zhao immediately changed his tone. "Hello, I'm very happy that you called me. I'm sorry that my assistant had my phone before, so I couldn't answer your call immediately." "It's okay. Mr. Chun, why are you calling me?" Mary, the 23rd generation's blood, asked. "Ms. Blood Mary, do you have any connections in England?" "What do you plan to do, Mr. Chun?" "My daughter wants to steal the Book of Prometheus from the British Museum." 23rd Blood Mary exclaimed. "Mr. Chun, you won't be involved, right?" "No," Chun Zhao said. "Mr. Chun, you wanted to help your daughter steal the Book of Prometheus?" 23rd Blood Mary was troubled. She was indeed very authoritative in Europe, but it didn't mean that she could do whatever she wanted. Moreover, England was one of the top countries in Europe in terms of national power and influence. 23rd Blood Mary's greatest influence was in the spiritual world, not the political world. Moreover, the British Museum was a national museum. Even 23rd Blood Mary couldn't help. "No," Chun Zhao said. "I don't plan on asking you to help either." If he needed help, Chun Zhao wouldn't ask anyone else. After all, he wasn't that familiar with 23rd Blood Mary. "I just hope that you can help me monitor my daughter's group," Chun Zhao said. "If there's anything exposed, help me cover it up." Of course. 23rd Blood Mary agreed without hesitation. So, she was just helping to clean up some traces. 23rd Blood Mary quickly understood Chun Zhao's intentions. Chun Zhao wanted Xian Li to go out and explore, not have them seek death. Xian Li, Kalon, Moore, and Lisa had been together every day for the past few days. They discussed the information they'd gathered. Ruan Faxi was also actively preparing for the match. He wasn't going to find the golden apple. He was going to be a babysitter. Thinking of this, Ruan Faxi felt a headache coming on. He started regretting his stupid decision that day to encourage Xin Li to find the golden apple. In the end, he'd gotten himself into trouble too. Now, he could only force himself to be a babysitter. He also had to make sure that nothing would happen to the kids. If anything happened to any of them, Chun Zhao would definitely skin him alive. After leaving Mirror Lake, Chun Zhao took the kids to Mountain Town for a walk. The residents of Mountain Town had a much better life now. Comparing the profits of the beer factory also brought them great returns. With a stable job and income, they had more money in their hands. Of course, the Mountain Town government still wanted to share the profits from Chun Zhao. Even the fact that the Dashin beer brand was originally owned by the Mountain Town government was brought up again. Fortunately, Chun Zhao had listened to Denver and bought out the entire Mountain beer brand. Legally, the excessive demands of the Mountain Town government couldn't be satisfied. Of course, the Mountain Town government's actions were quite shameless. But facing such huge profits, it was reasonable for the government to act shamelessly. Of course, Chun Zhao and Denver always ignored such requests. After all, they had the absolute right to speak. They could even threaten to fire the Mountain Town employees. Chapter 1833. Boss, are you familiar with the people here? Portia asked. Of course. My house is here. Of course I'm familiar. Portia realized that people would greet Chun Zhao wherever he went. It seemed that Chun Zhao really knew a lot of people. A few people sat by the flower bed across the street. They were the gangsters of Mountain Town. One of the women had a lollipop in her mouth. She looked across the street. Who's that Asian? I've never seen him in Mountain Town. He's rich. He lives by Mirror Lake. The typhoon flattened his house, and it's being rebuilt. He's living somewhere else for now, one of the gangsters said. One of the gangsters said, Dashin beer is his business. Hundreds of families in the whole town have more money than him. So rich? The woman's eyes brightened. Asians should be easy to bully. We just need to scare him a little, and we can extort a lot of money from him. Please don't. He's not a normal person. No one in Mountain Town dares to offend him. One of the gangsters hurriedly stopped her. Why? He's not a big deal other than being rich. You've only been here for a few months. You don't know how scary he is. Last time, a guy went to him, and he beat him up and sent him to the ICU. Can't we just have a few more people? The woman's eyes flashed with ferocity. If we get a few more people, Mountain Town will be our territory in the future. If we throw a few Molotov cocktails at his house, I don't believe that he won't compromise. Guriel, do you want to die? The gangster glanced at the woman. I already said that we can't offend that guy. If you do, I'll back out now. Coward. Guriel's expression darkened. She was displeased that someone had humiliated her in front of everyone. I'll back out too. Me too. I don't want to go against Chun Zhao. Not every gangster in Mountain Town had interacted with Chun Zhao before, but they all knew what Chun Zhao was capable of. There were people who didn't believe him in the past 2 years, but they were all tortured to death in the end. A few people were still missing. A year ago, a gang came to Mountain Town. Dozens of people came to Mountain Town and stayed there for 2 days. Then, he heard that Mountain Town's rich man was Chun Zhao, so he brought a few people to find him. That night, the dozens of people disappeared. There was no evidence that Chun Zhao had done it. However, the residents of Mountain Town all thought that it was Chun Zhao who did it. In the blink of an eye, Gyunel realized that the hoodlums she had recruited with great difficulty actually had the same attitude on this matter. Unlike the other thugs, Nur had done everything. He had been an assassin for a gang, a mercenary, an informant for the police, and a bounty hunter. Gyunel was strong, brave, and ruthless. Seeing Chun Zhao's figure, Gurnier was even more displeased. If he could get rid of that Asian, then he would have the final say in Mountain Town. With that thought in mind, Gurnier strengthened his determination. Portia, take the kids to the car. Chun Zhao suddenly stopped and said, Take them home now. Boss, what are you doing? I suddenly remembered that I have something to do, Chun Zhao said. What is it? Why are you asking so many questions? Chun Zhao rolled his eyes at Portia. Uncle, do you need me to stay and help? Didira asked. Among all the people, only Didira knew what was going on. Chun Zhao patted Didira's head. No need. Go. Portia had a strange expression. What was Chun Zhao going to do? Didira actually asked if Chun Zhao needed her help. This family was full of strange things. Portia sent the group of children to the MPV and drove away. Didira, what's your uncle going to do? Nothing. Didira lowered her head and sank into her own world again. Xianli was also curious, but she didn't ask now. Xianli knew about Didira's specialness. Didira wasn't a witch, but she had a special bloodline. She had the legendary clairvoyance and clairvoyance. If visibility allowed, she could see a bug thousands of meters away. As long as the environment was quiet, she could hear murmurs thousands of meters away. Didira, do you need help? Xianli asked. Not really, Didira said. Didira had asked Chun Zhao if he needed help. She just pitted the woman called Gear. That woman called Nur had obviously picked the wrong target. Suddenly, Gear realized that Chun Zhao, whom she'd followed all the way, had suddenly separated from his kids and turned toward her. With a smile on his face, Chun Zhao stood before Gear. Gear's heart skipped a beat. She had a bad feeling. Gear looked around carefully. There were no passers-by. There were no cameras here either. Gear's plan was to attack in a more secluded place. But this place was fine too. Gear looked at Chun Zhao. I heard you're very rich. I want to get to know you. Chun Zhao rubbed his nose. I don't plan on getting to know a scumbag. Gear suddenly took out a dagger and charged at Chun Zhao. Gear wanted to use Chun Zhao to establish her dominance. She wasn't afraid of killing people on the street. There were no passers-by here anyway. Plus, her experience in the past taught her how to get rid of all the evidence. Chun Zhao's right leg flashed, and then he pulled it back. Gear felt her vision blur, and then she was sent flying. Gear spat out a mouthful of blood. She felt like all the bones in her body were broken. Gurnir endured the intense pain and panted heavily, gradually suppressing the pain in his body. Then she stood up again. Chun Zhao was surprised that the woman could still stand up after being kicked by him. Gear touched her chest. 2 of her ribs were broken. This injury wasn't easy to recover from. It wasn't that Gear hadn't met opponents stronger than her, but she could stand to the end every time. Other people didn't know, but no matter how serious her injuries were, Gear could recover quickly. She could also use her willpower to suppress the pain from her injuries. Chun Zhao also realized that Gear didn't look like she was injured. His kick hadn't been merciful. Apart from not killing her, it could basically make her wheelchair for the rest of her life. But not only did Gear stand up again, she didn't seem injured at all. In fact, her aura was even stronger than before. A spiritualist? She didn't seem to realize her identity. Chun Zhao wanted to see how much she could do. You seem to know how to take a beating. Chapter 1834. Gyunel charged at him again. In the end, Chun Zhao still kicked her away. Gyunel rolled on the ground in pain. This time, Chun Zhao used more strength in his attack. If she was a normal person, Chun Zhao's kick would definitely make her never walk again. But after rolling on the ground for a while, Gyunel actually recovered. Gradually, Gyunel stood up. She was covered in sweat, but the pain on her face was lessening. Chun Zhao tilted his head and looked at Gyunel. Gyunel panted heavily, and her aura grew stronger. As if venting, she punched the wall beside her. There was actually a fist mark on the concrete. This wasn't something a normal person could do. Gyunel gritted her teeth and looked at Chun Zhao. I'm going to kill you. Standing where he was, Chun Zhao crooked his finger. Come. Gyunel roared angrily and charged at Chun Zhao again, punching at him. Chun Zhao also raised his arm and punched back. Crack! Gyunel's entire arm was crippled. Gyunel took 2 steps back and touched her weak right arm. Chun Zhao had broken all the bones in her arm. The pain was indescribable. But in just a dozen seconds, Gyunel's injury healed again. Chun Zhao still had a confused expression. Wasn't the speed of her recovery a little too fast? Her recovery speed was almost the same as his, right? Also, every time she was injured, she would become stronger. Where did this power come from? You can't kill me. Gyunel grinned at Chun Zhao. Then I'll kill you. Nur's forte was bravery and ruthlessness. She could also turn from weak to strong every time. Because she could always drag it out until she was exhausted, she would become stronger and stronger. Smiling, Chun Zhao stood there and looked at Gyunel. Looking at Chun Zhao's face, Gyunel hated him even more. She charged at Chun Zhao again, but her spine was naturally broken by Chun Zhao's kick. This was almost a fatal injury. But Gyunel stood up again. This time, her recovery speed was slower. But Chun Zhao realized another problem. Although Nurse seemed to be stronger than before, but her face was getting paler and paler. It seemed like her recovery speed was beyond common sense. There was also a limit to his inexplicably powerful strength. "Tell me," Chun Zhao asked, "what's with this weird ability of yours?" Gurnier's breathing became more and more rapid. She had never met an enemy like Chun Zhao. The tactics she'd used in the past to drag her enemies to death seemed to be completely useless against him. No matter how much stronger she was, Chun Zhao could still heavily injure her with one kick. Gunnier was initially full of confidence, but now he was starting to regret his recklessness. In the beginning, she dared to make a move on the street because she felt that no one could stop her. Even if the matter was exposed, the most he could do was run away. However, Chun Zhao was much more difficult to deal with than she had imagined, and Gyunel knew his own family well. She did not understand how this ability came about. She could gain strength through pain. The greater the pain one endured, the greater the power and regenerative ability one would obtain. She called this power the power of pain. She had never told anyone about this. She was afraid of being caught and used as a guinea pig. However, this ability was not without its limits. The power of pain had a threshold. Once it exceeded the threshold, the power would collapse and the body would suffer unimaginable pain. Gunnier started to become nervous, impatient, and angry. After this, she would definitely kill his entire family. Gunnier picked up the dagger on the ground. This time, she charged forward again. This time, Chun Zhao did not move. He did not even block. Gunnier's dagger stabbed into Chun Zhao's stomach. Gunnier was overjoyed. Success. But the next moment, she realized that something was wrong. She did not feel like she had stabbed into flesh. Chun Zhao did not dodge or block. He actually wanted to know how strong Gunnier was. Gunnier looked up and saw Chun Zhao looking down at her. Chun Zhao still had a smile on his face. Gunnier stabbed again. The result was the same. Gunnier's dagger was probably as strong as an automatic rifle. Chun Zhao reached out and pinched Gunnier's mouth. Gunnier wanted to open her mouth to bite Chun Zhao's palm. Unfortunately, she could not open her mouth at all. Chun Zhao glanced around. Gunnier's heart pounded. Chun Zhao's action was exactly the same as what she had done in the past when she committed crimes. Chun Zhao dragged Gunnier into the alley. Gunnier struggled with all her might, but she could not resist at all. Chun Zhao tossed Gunnier onto the ground and stepped on her palm. Chun Zhao squatted down before Gunnier, holding up Gunnier's crushed hand. As expected, Gunnier's palm started recovering. Gunnier raised her left arm and smashed it at Chun Zhao's head. Chun Zhao did not give her a chance to attack at all. He grabbed the incoming fist and squeezed hard. Gunnier screamed again. Gunnier screamed again. However, it didn't take long for Gyunel's fist to recover. "Very strong recovery," Chun Zhao said, rubbing his chin. Gunnier was in extreme pain now. She regretted it. She really regretted it. She really could not offend this guy. He was a demon. I wonder if I can recover if I remove the entire arm. Chun Zhao grabbed Gunnier's arm and was about to use force. Thinking about it, he felt that it was risky. "Forget it," Chun Zhao muttered to himself. "I'll just remove one finger first." Gunnier screamed again. Chun Zhao removed the middle finger from Gunnier's right hand. But this time, Gunnier's finger did not grow back. Chun Zhao tried a few more times. As long as he did not remove all her limbs from her body could recover. Of course, the recovery speed varied. Chun Zhao stood up. He found Gunnier interesting. "Klaus, come to Mountain Town with a helicopter. I caught an interesting lab rat." Hearing the word lab rat, Gunnier trembled uncontrollably in fear. A sinister smile appeared on Chun Zhao's face. "Are you scared of being cut up for research? Just as you thought?" you'll be sliced into pieces. Your blood, your skin, and your brain will all be stripped away. Gunnir struggled to escape, but Chen Zhao pressed her to the ground with one hand. She was terrified. She did not think that she would walk right into a trap and run to Chen Zhao. She wanted to use Chen Zhao to establish her dominance. In the end, she was captured by Chen Zhao as a lab rat. Right now, Gunnir wanted to cry. Chapter 1835. Gyunil was in the underworld. It wasn't that she hadn't seen evil people before. She'd even killed a few gang bosses. But now, she really regretted it. This man was even more evil than her. A few people from the association came. They were all curious. Who in LA dared to offend Chen Zhao? But they regretted it after seeing it. Gyunil wasn't strong. Plus, she'd been tortured so badly by Chen Zhao. The helicopter landed at the HQ and Gyunil was dragged down. Gyunil was in intense pain all over. The side effects of that ability had already appeared. The power of pain was spreading throughout her body. Gyunil was tough and didn't make a sound. A few people from the HQ came over. They wanted to see who Chen Zhao had brought back. Gyunil suddenly jumped up and pounced at a girl beside her. Seeing Gyunil pounce, Lisa pushed. A surge of energy burst forth from her palm. Gyunil was sent flying. Gyunil was dumbfounded. She didn't understand what had happened at all. How could a girl be so scary? Chen Zhao smiled, but didn't say anything, even if he could have stopped it just now. Even if he could have stopped her, he didn't. Apart from Aduz, everyone here could beat Gyunil up. Even if it was Aduz, he still had a bunch of ferocious evil spirit followers. Chen Zhao smiled at Gyunil. Stand up. Don't play dead. Gyunil stood up slowly. Gyunil's eyes flashed. She seemed to want to fight one last time. The people around him looked at Neil with mocking eyes. Gyunil felt extremely embarrassed. What exactly do you want? You messed with me first, Chen Zhao said calmly. Gyunil looked left and right. Everyone was watching the show. Everyone was watching her make a fool of herself. You're breaking the law, Gyunil said after a long while. Everyone roared with laughter. Gyunil was embarrassed too. In the past, it was her enemies who said this to her. But today, she was forced to say such words. If Chen Zhao cared, he probably wouldn't have kidnapped her here. Everyone here clearly didn't care about worldly laws. Even the girl who'd sent her flying had a sneer on her face. Just then, Ruan Faxben walked out. Yo, President, where did you find such an ancient clan? Primordial clan? What ancient family? Chen Zhao asked, confused. To put it bluntly, he's a person of ancient bloodline, Ruan Faxben said. The most direct way to tell is his green pupils. Everyone looked at Neil's eyes. Sure enough, her eyes were green. The primordial clan originated in ancient Egypt. They were actually a branch of humans, but because they were stronger than ordinary people, they threatened the position of the rulers. In the end, they were slaughtered by ordinary humans. However, among ordinary people, there would occasionally be one or two people with atavism, Ruan Faxben said. This was the first time Neil had heard of it. The origin of his special ability. So he's special? Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes at Nur. Compared to ordinary people, of course it's special. Ruan Faxben said, but to us, they're just so-so. The primordial clan is our kind. They're not much stronger than us. Their strongest ability is to suppress pain and turn pain into power. In ancient Egypt, they formed a powerful undead army, but they don't have true immortality. They'll still die from fatal injuries. Neil understood. These weren't ordinary people either. President, give her to me, Ruan Faxben said. You like this type? Huh. I just want to use her for an experiment. After all, the primordial clan is rare. Gurnir shuddered. He looked at Ruan Faxben's messy hair, face full of stubble, and clothes that were also messy and stained. He looked like one of those perverted scientists in movies and TV dramas. Coincidentally, I want to do an experiment, Chen Zhao said. Give me a copy of the data when it's out. No, I don't want to be a lab rat. I'll agree to whatever you want me to do. I'll be your subordinate. Don't make me an experiment subject. Neil begged. Sorry, I don't need it. Chen Zhao looked at Neil with a smile. Neil pounced at Chen Zhao. She wanted to fight with all her might. But the next moment, A black chain drilled out of the ground and wrapped around Neil. Ruan Faxi pointed with his finger, and Neil was pulled to the ground. Little rat, don't mess around. Chen Zhao was surprised. One of the 4 Pillar Kings of the Roma had used this spell last time too. It seemed to be called Hell's Chain, but that wasn't strange. Ruan Faxi knew a lot of random spells. Just then, Portia called. Hey, Portia, what's up? Ms. Alex said that she needs you to go over and sign the contract. The sooner, the better. Okay, I got it. Chen Zhao hung up. Glancing at the dragged Neil, he turned to leave. Ruan Faxbin held the other end of the chain. Neil was completely restrained and couldn't use any strength. Do you know a Fumin? Ruan Faxbin asked. Gurnier's footsteps paused, and his expression changed. Where did you hear that name? So you do. Is she okay now? Ruan Faxbin's tone was indifferent, but there was also some nostalgia in his tone. Who are you? Neil asked, but at the next moment, Gurnier suddenly felt the chains on his body tighten, and his feet seemed to break free from gravity as he floated up. Holding the chain, Ruan Faxbin said indifferently, Keep your voice down. Who exactly are you? Who I am is none of your business. Is a Fumin in Los Angeles? She disappeared. She disappeared 10 years ago. Disappeared? Ruan Faxbin narrowed his eyes and turned to look at Neil. How did she disappear? Missing is missing. How would I know how she went missing? You'd better keep your arrogance and rudeness to yourself. Anyone here can kill you. Ruan Faxbin's tone was rather cold. Just then, the door beside the corridor opened. Gunil saw a girl in black walk out of the door. Looking through the crack in the door, he saw a few skulls in the room. Hellis glanced at Gunil indifferently, and then at Ruan Faxbin. You're disturbing me. I'm sorry, Helith. Ruan Faxi was a little respectful towards Helith at first. Hellis's gaze fell on Neil. Very good material. Ruan, how about giving her to me? Sorry, she's the president's trophy. He asked me to experiment on her. Chapter 1836. When Gunil faced Helith, he felt a chill down his spine. The girl looked young, but there was a hair-raising, awe-inspiring aura between her brows. Helith had a pitiful expression and licked her lips. What a pity. If only I could turn her into a specimen. You know the ancient family too? Yes, I've met one before, Helith said. Huh, there are very few ancient families now. Where did you meet one? Wydak. Where? How come I've never heard of it? An island in the Atlantic Ocean, Helith said. With that, she turned to leave. After a few steps, she looked back at Gunil. Ruan, can you give her to me after you finish your research? Gunil's expression was unnatural. Specimen? The girl said she wanted to turn her into a specimen. Go talk to the president. Ruan Faxbin left with Gunil. Gunil was terrified. She was brought into a lab. Then the chains on her body were loosened. Don't think about escaping. No one can escape from here, Ruan Faxbin said. Plus, you've offended the president. Gunil didn't care. So what if she did? At most, she would die. Of course, it would be best if she didn't die. When did Almond go missing? Ruan Faxbin asked again. What's your relationship with a Fumin? A Fumin used to be my student, Ruan Faxbin said. Ruan Faxbin said, but she left my side 25 years ago, and then there was no trace of her. If I hadn't met you today, I would have almost forgotten that I had such a student. Ruan Faxbin looked at a Fumin. You're her daughter? Gunil didn't speak. Ruan Faxbin waved his hand. Draw some blood. Gunil stared at Ruan with a dark expression. You think I'll cooperate? You should. After all, you can stay alive for a Fumin's sake. But if the president does it himself, you might be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. Ruan Faxbin glanced at the missing finger on Gunil's right hand. Thinking of Chen Zhao, Gunil was shocked. In the end, he picked up the syringe and drew some blood. And some of your skin and flesh. Gunnier was furious, but he could only compromise in the end. When did a Velman go missing? 10 years ago. Gunil watched as Ruan Faxbin conducted an experiment that she couldn't understand while talking to her. You weren't an adult then, right? Ruan Faxi asked casually. Gunil's face gradually turned cold. She obviously didn't want to talk more about a Fumin. After all, because of her mother's disappearance, she had no one to rely on when she was underage. Her current personality to a large extent, was formed during those years. In the United States, the government sold everything, including land, islands, and oceans. Of course, it was the same for every country. When Chun Zhao arrived at Alex's law firm, he realized that Alex had called the people from the Land and Resources Bureau over. The Land and Resources Bureau sent a small team of 4 people and a lawyer. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to sell. In fact, Alex and her team had already negotiated the price for Chun Zhao. The people from the Bureau of Land and Resources didn't care why Chun Zhao was buying an ocean, even though Chun Zhao said it was for breeding. But they wouldn't believe him. Anyway, they wouldn't care. But then again, since Chun Zhao was willing to buy 100 square kilometers of ocean, he might be willing to buy even larger ones. The rules of the Bureau of Land and Resources for selling the ocean were that it couldn't be a sea route or the habitat of a single species, especially an endangered species. It couldn't be polluting. If a ship, person, or plane crashed in the ocean, the rescuers or teams had the right to enter the area. Anyway, there were a lot of messy conditions. When these people saw Chun Zhao, they started to brag about the huge economic value of the sea. To them, it wasn't easy to meet an idiot, especially one who had money but nowhere to spend it. So, they really hoped that the idiot would buy more. The sea area of the United States was so large, and most of the sea areas, except for a small number of coastal fisheries, were basically empty and had no economic value. So, if someone was willing to buy, they were obviously willing to sell. Unfortunately, Chun Zhao didn't need such a large area at all. After all, Nanchi Island was only so big. It was at most 10 square kilometers. If the island was to be reclaimed and expanded in the future, it would at most be 20 or 30 square kilometers. It wouldn't be any bigger. Chun Zhao didn't need such a large area. Buying an extra inch would be a waste. Chun Zhao was already willing to buy 100 square kilometers. Actually, 50 square kilometers was enough. So, Chun Zhao wouldn't buy a single cent more. The people from the Bureau of Land and Resources were helpless. They couldn't persuade Chun Zhao. Right now, it wasn't a seller's market, but a buyer's market. If Chun Zhao didn't buy it, they would be in big trouble. Originally, Alex had expected to buy the ocean for $5 million, but in the end, she forcefully lowered it to $2 million. Of course, she would get a cut of the money she saved. Alex kept asking Chun Zhao about it. Why did one buy the ocean? But Chun Zhao still wouldn't tell her. Alex was very helpless. She didn't believe that Chun Zhao really had too much money and nowhere to spend it. But she still didn't understand the value of the ocean. Was there some natural mineral deposit in the ocean? Even if there was, Chun Zhao couldn't touch the mineral deposit. That wasn't something Chun Zhao could do. Even if the ocean belonged to Chun Zhao, he couldn't do this business. The mineral deposit business had long been controlled by the various giants. Even the richest man in the world would be beaten up if he got involved in the mineral deposit or energy industry, not to mention Chun Zhao. Every industry had its own rules. For example, in the beer industry, Dashin Beer was now a local giant. If a new person entered the picture, Chun Zhao would also attack, just like how Dashin Beer had been attacked in the past. But the beer industry was relatively mild. Most of the time, it wouldn't use extreme competition. The energy and mineral industries, on the other hand, were pretty much a bloodbath. Just look at the massacres caused by the big companies in Africa and South America. They even started wars. For example, the YLK War. To put it simply, it was a war of energy. Chapter 1837. As soon as Chun Zhao walked out of Alex's law firm, 2 bodyguards in black approached him. "Mr. Chun, we were sent by Ali Rodriguez Alexander. She hasn't been feeling well recently. We hope you could take a look at her." With that, one of the bodyguards handed Chun Zhao a check. "Sure." Chun Zhao looked at the number on the check and agreed without hesitation. Chun Zhao was indeed very rich now, but capitalists were greedy and insatiable. Ali Rodriguez Alexander gave him a price he couldn't refuse. Chun Zhao went to Ali Rodriguez Alexander's luxurious manor without hesitation. Rydra returned to Ali Rodriguez Alexander's side. The last time Chun Zhao saw her, she was still in prison. Ali Rodriguez Alexander was sitting on the same chair as when they first met. Rydra nodded slightly at Chun Zhao. It was a greeting to Chun Zhao. Mr. Chun, hello. We meet again. Hello, Ms. Alexander. Chun Zhao sat beside Ali Rodriguez Alexander. Are you feeling unwell this time? The last time I woke up after being in a coma for 3 days, I felt that I couldn't sleep. Recently, I needed about 48 hours to fall asleep, and the sleep time was very short. I went to the hospital to see a doctor, and the doctor said that it might be a physiological disorder caused by the hormone drugs used during the coma, or it might be because the toxins are still in the body. At present, the hospital can't give an accurate answer. Ms. Alexander, have you had any episodes recently? Are these the symptoms of ALS you mentioned? I don't think so. Ali Rodriguez Alexander stared at Chun Zhao. She wasn't sure if she had fully recovered. After all, ALS was a disease that was hard to detect and prevent. Once it was discovered, it might be in the middle or late stages. Ali Rodriguez Alexander's current state was also very strange. It didn't matter if she was fine or not. Chun Zhao also wanted to see how Ali Rodriguez Alexander was doing. After all, in order to expel the poison from her body, Chun Zhao had fed her the perfect crystal mixture and injected a bit of immortal power. Chun Zhao wasn't sure what would happen if immortal power entered a normal person's body. Chun Zhao checked Ali Rodriguez Alexander's body. That wisp of immortal power was still in Ali Rodriguez Alexander's body. It hadn't been consumed, but it hadn't strengthened either. Chun Zhao was surprised. He didn't expect the immortal power to still be there. One must know that this trace of immortal energy was as insignificant as a matchstick. But immortal power actually existed in Ali Rodriguez Alexander's body. The immortal power wasn't constantly maintained in Ali Rodriguez Alexander's dantian, but automatically circulated in her body. It was this trace of immortal power that kept Ali Rodriguez Alexander in a state of excitement. It's fine, Chun Zhao said. Since you can't sleep, then sleep less. Don't take any tranquilizers. Your body is fine, so don't worry. Hearing that, Ali Rodriguez Alexander heaved a sigh of relief. Chun Zhao realized that the wisp of immortal power was not ordinary qi. It was more like a key that unlocked a certain switch in Ali Rodriguez Alexander's body. Chun Zhao fell into deep thought. Ali Rodriguez Alexander's potential should have been unlocked by the immortal power. According to current scientific inference, there is some kind of switch in the human body. Once this switch was turned on, one would be able to surpass ordinary people. All the attributes of the body would increase. Chun Zhao thought of the primordial family. Could the primordial family be the evolved version of humans? If the immortal power in Ali Rodriguez Alexander remained, would she evolve into the primordial family? Mr. Chun, what are you thinking about? Is there something wrong with my body? Sorry, Chun Zhao said. I was distracted. Don't worry, you're very healthy. Even healthier than I expected. Is it really okay? Ali Rodriguez Alexander was still a bit worried. After all, Ali Rodriguez Alexander was already at the age of knowing her destiny. However, her body was uncharacteristically excited, her appetite increased, and her athletic ability increased. If she was a young person, she definitely wouldn't think too much. But now, Ali Rodriguez Alexander was an old woman. She wondered if this was the final radiance of a setting sun. Rydra had also examined Ali Rodriguez Alexander. She also realized that Ali Rodriguez Alexander was a bit too healthy. Thus, she didn't dare to jump to conclusions. That was why she suggested Ali Rodriguez Alexander find Chun Zhao. If there was a doctor in the world that Ali Rodriguez Alexander could trust, it was undoubtedly Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao's answer was the same as Rydra's. Ali Rodriguez heaved a sigh of relief. Now, in Ryder's eyes, Chun Zhao was the most authoritative person. Ali Rodriguez Alexander wanted Chun Zhao to stay for dinner, but Chun Zhao still refused. Ali Rodriguez Alexander walked Chun Zhao to the door. Chun Zhao glanced at the manor and said, "Go somewhere else. This place is good, but the air quality is average." Of course, Chun Zhao was just being perfunctory when he said the air quality was average. What Chun Zhao was really dissatisfied with was the thin spiritual energy here. If Chun Zhao fought with others here, his endurance would decrease by at least half. The air quality here is average, but the greenery here is great. It's relative. You can find a better place. Chen Zhao didn't explain further. If it was a normal client, Chen Zhao wouldn't even bother to say so much. For a normal person, moving was a big deal. But for Ali Rodriguez Alexander, moving was just a matter of a word. Chen Zhao thought of the land that Stephen had bought. That piece of land was really good with feng shui. Mr. Chen, do you have any recommendations? Chen Zhao shook his head with a smile. I'm not good at this, but it's easy to tell if a place has good air quality. Like Mr. Chen's Minuet Villa, Ali Rodriguez Alexander said, smiling. Your place is really hard to leave. Ali Rodriguez Alexander could clearly feel the obvious difference between her manner and Chen Zhao's Minuet Villa. Ali Rodriguez Alexander thought that it was because of the environment. The view was wide and the sea breeze blew. The air from the sea was unpolluted. Chapter 1838. As soon as Ellie and Chen Zhao reached the door, they saw a car drive in. An old man in his 50s hurriedly got out. The old man seemed to be in a hurry. His face was full of anxiety. Ms. Alexander, can you give me 3 minutes? Just 3 minutes. Seeing this, Chen Zhao said to Ali Rodriguez Alexander, I'm leaving. Ellie was a bit unhappy with the old man's request, but she still bid farewell to Chen Zhao peacefully. Chen Zhao glanced at the old man, nodded slightly, and turned to leave. The old man seemed to have something to ask of Ellie. When Chen Zhao's car drove out of Ellie's manor, he saw the old man's car drive out too. It seemed like Ellie Rodriguez Alexander had only given him 3 minutes. When Chen Zhao got home, Xian Li and Kalon were huddled together, discussing something. Chen Zhao's face darkened. He hadn't even hugged his daughter properly, and she was already with a pig, right? Chen Zhao eavesdropped on their conversation. They were all talking about the golden apple. Chen Zhao sat beside the two. When do you plan on leaving? Uncle. Xian Li glanced at Chen Zhao. We're still searching for more information about the golden apple. Did you find anything? Nothing. Seems like we really need the Book of Prometheus to unlock the secret of the golden apple. I have high hopes for you. Uncle, aren't you going to stop us from stealing the Book of Prometheus from the British Museum? Oh, then don't go. Uncle, how can you go back on your word? See, I tried to stop you, but you threw a tantrum. What's there to stop? Chen Zhao shrugged. It's fine as long as you don't kill anyone. It's best if you can limit the impact to something that can be settled with money. Xian Li actually felt embarrassed. After all, Chen Zhao had already said that. He even considered how to clean up after Chen Zhao in the end. Boss, I'll take the afternoon off. Portia walked to Chen Zhao. For what? There's an audition in the afternoon. Mr. Stephen recommended me. All right, you can go. Portia left in a hurry. She had to prepare for the audition. He didn't have anything to do in the afternoon, so he planned to walk around UCLA. However, Xian Li and Kalon probably couldn't handle so many kids by themselves, so Chen Zhao planned to bring them along. Chen Zhao brought a bunch of kids to school and attracted some attention. Chen Zhao brought the kids into Wright's office. They directly occupied Wright's office. Chen, where did you kidnap so many kids? Wright was speechless at Jerlin, who had already climbed onto her desk. Grandma, do you have games on your computer? Jerlin looked at Wright with watery eyes. Wright looked at Chen Zhao helplessly. They're all children I adopted. Chen Zhao shrugged. Just then, KG Sayer walked in. When he saw Chen Zhao, his expression darkened. But when he saw the large group of children, he couldn't help but be stunned. Headmaster. Yes, what is it? The volleyball club needs to buy some equipment, so we hope to get some funds, KG Sayer said. This is the application form. Chen Zhao didn't speak at the side. After KG Sayer left, he finally spoke. Right? I asked you to help me find out about this woman. Have you figured it out yet? KG Sayer's hostility toward Chen Zhao was very obvious. But Chen Zhao didn't even know her. So, Chen Zhao had always been curious about what kind of grudge this woman had against him. It's none of my business. Solve your own problem. Why don't you ask her directly? Wright didn't plan to help at all. Instead, she gloated. Tell me the truth. You really don't know her? Could it be that you slept with her before? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes and glared at Wright. Do you believe that I'll bring them here every day? It's okay. I like kids. You better come a few more days. Clang. Wright's cup on the table hit the ground and shattered. Jerlin stuck out her tongue. Grandma Wright, sorry. It's okay. Wright's face twitched. Crack. Suddenly, Kilo held a bunch of flowers in his hands. Kilo looked at Wright, his face bright red. Wright's jaw dropped as she stared at the flower in Kilo's hand. Sorry, Grandma Wright. I accidentally pulled the flowers out. Kilo wasn't very familiar with controlling his power. It was mainly because he was still growing and his increase in power was very unstable. Sometimes his strength would suddenly increase without rhyme or reason. I wanted to cry. That was her favorite daffodil. In the end, Kilo pulled it out directly. Chun Zhao walked over and snatched the daffodil from Kilo's hands, then stuffed it back into the pot. It's okay. Grandma Wright won't blame you. Wright really wanted to roar, but with her temperament, she managed to restrain the anger in her heart. She just stared at Chun Zhao with a murderous gaze. Okay. Looks like Grandma Wright is a little angry. Let's go. Chun Zhao tricked Wright and left with the kids, chuckling. Kalon brought Xin Li and the other kids to walk around the school. Chun Zhao carried little Jerlin and little Larissa. Didi also followed beside him. Just then, Lit Grove walked over. Grove. Teacher. Lit Grove was also surprised to see Chun Zhao. What's wrong? You look down? Nothing. Lit Grove shook his head. But, judging from his expression, something had clearly happened. Then treat me and the kids to dinner tonight. Smiling, Chun Zhao looked at Little Grove. Lit Grove's face turned purple. Teacher, I'm a bit short on money recently. What's wrong? Isn't your dad a superstar? You're short on money? In Chun Zhao's impression, Lit Grove had always been generous. Plus, he wasn't working in the morgue anymore. He was a real intern. Teacher, if I want to borrow some money, will you lend it to me? Lit Grove asked, his face bright red. How much? Chun Zhao asked, taking out his wallet. $10 million. What? $10 million? What do you need $10 million for? Chun Zhao stared at Lit Grove in shock. Chapter 1839. Lit Grove turned his head. If you can't, then forget it. Tell me first, what do you want $10 million for? Do you owe money? Chun Zhao could afford the $10 million. Also, Lit Grove had performed very well in the past 6 months. If he really needed it, Chun Zhao was willing to lend him money. It's not me who wants it. It's my dad who needs it. Lit Grove said, my father invested in a movie, but now the capital chain is broken. If my father can't come up with the follow-up funds, the project will probably be ruined. This is a check for $10 million. Chun Zhao took out the consultation fee that Ellie Rodriguez Alexander had given him today. $10 million. Little Grove was stunned for a moment. Now the money was in front of him. He didn't dare to reach out to take it. Teacher, I have to return it, Chun Zhao said. While Lit Grove was still in a daze, Chun Zhao stuffed the check into his hands. Can you treat us to dinner now? Teacher, I don't have a single cent with me, except for this check. Forget it. I'll treat you, okay? After calling the kids who were still wandering around in school, Chun Zhao's family went out to eat with Lit Grove. Although Lit Grove had received Chun Zhao's loan of $10 million, Chun Zhao had given him a lot of money. However, he still looked worried. The atmosphere at the dining table was still a little gloomy and preoccupied. Grove, do you not have enough money? Enough, teacher. If it's not enough, just tell me. It's not that. Lit Grove shook his head. His expression showed that he had something on his mind. He sighed and said, it's my dad's project. I really don't have much confidence. Are you that pessimistic about your father's film project? Sigh. Dad is too radical this time. Although he is very famous in Hollywood, he hasn't produced any memorable works in the past few years. None of his works have performed well at the box office, so Dad has become very impatient. He is eager to prove himself with this project, so I am very worried that he will fail. Didn't you persuade him? How could he listen to me? Lit Grove shook his head with a bitter smile. In his eyes, I'm still that kid who asks him for money every day. Aren't you? Chun Zhao mercilessly exposed Lit Grove's true nature. Teacher, I've already restrained myself a lot this year, all right? Your father's project is an independent film. Yes, he's the main character himself. I heard that he received a script after watching Mr. Stevens' last two movies. Not only did it succeed in the box office, but it also won the Oscars, Lit Grove said helplessly. Anyway, it's a very ambitious work. All right, let the adults handle their own matters. Since your father chose this movie project, he must have his own considerations. After all, he's more professional than you. Chun Zhao could only comfort Ritter Grove with these words. After all, Chun Zhao had been in the film industry before. More or less, he knew some inside information about movies. No company or project could guarantee the success of a movie. Even Steven was known as the king of the box office and the king of directors. But every one of his own movies was treading on thin ice. Even he wasn't confident, let alone others. There were many factors that contributed to a movie's failure. Even the successful movies in history might not succeed. Another director might not be able to do it either. But movies that failed in the box office all had one thing in common. They were ugly. The public didn't like it. Most independent movies had this problem. A movie with a plot that wasn't friendly to ordinary audiences would definitely fail in the box office. So, sometimes professionals might not have more accurate eyes than ordinary audiences. Just like the Cloud Map from a few years ago. That movie was made by the Wachowski siblings, the directors of The Matrix. It was said to be their most ambitious work. In the end, the box office suffered a huge loss. The plot was very obscure. Ordinary audiences couldn't understand it all, so it was natural that it failed. Grove, where did you go this time? Drow Grove sat in the living room, dissatisfaction written all over his face. You're not young anymore. You should learn to be independent and not go out to play every day. I'm at school all day today, Lit Grove retorted. Lit Grove retorted, please don't vent your unhappiness at work on me. I'm your father. Drow Grove's voice suddenly rose. Indeed, everything had been going wrong for him recently. He had run into a wall everywhere he looked for investments. This made him suppress an unknown anger in his heart that he had nowhere to vent. Lit Grove took out the check. Here's $10 million. Stunned, Drow Grove took the check and looked at it. Where did you get it? I borrowed it, Lit Grove replied. Borrowed? Where did you get it? Did you find a loan shark? No, I didn't. I borrowed it from a friend. Don't worry about the interest. Just pay the bank interest when you pay it back. Show me the loan contract, Drow Grove said seriously. If he didn't know where the check came from, he wouldn't dare to use it. Even though Lit Grove had made it clear, he was still worried that Lit Grove would be cheated. Some loans seemed harmless on the surface, but actually hid deep traps. There's no loan contract, Lit Grove said. My relationship with him doesn't need a loan contract. How is that possible? If there's no loan contract, how can your friend be sure that you'll pay it back? Anyway, don't worry. No, you have to tell me who you borrowed the money from. It's my teacher, a university teacher, Lit Grove said. A university teacher? A university teacher is that rich? No, he's just an exception. Anyway, he's very rich. Are you sure he's fine? I'm not a child, Lit Grove said. Drow Grove's eyes flickered. If there's no loan contract, Dad, don't mess around. My teacher has a huge network, and he's very rich. If you don't pay him back, he'll make sure you can't survive in Hollywood. I'm a Hollywood A-lister. No one can make me lose my career. Can Mr. Steven do that? He can, but I don't have any conflicts with him. Chapter 1840. He can get Mr. Steven to ban you. Trust me, as long as he asks, Mr. Steven will make you disappear from Hollywood forever. Your teacher knows Mr. Steven? Not only do they know each other, he and Mr. Steven are best friends. They invested in the movie Kidnapped, which is currently airing. Little Grove shook his head. Plus, his assets are in the tens of billions. He can kill you with money. Drow Grove inhaled sharply. He did not know that his son's teacher had such a powerful background. He glanced at the check in his hand. 10 million was tempting, but it wasn't worth risking his life. A super rich man was terrifying. Neither he nor his son could fight against him. Son, when are you going to introduce me to your teacher? Forget it. My teacher doesn't like to have anything to do with you. Drow Grove was rather disappointed. If only he'd known that his son knew such a super rich man. He would have got to know him earlier. After Kalon said goodbye, Chun Zhao immediately pulled Xian Li to his side. Xian Li, I'm not against you dating, but my request is that you're not allowed to sleep with any man before you turn 18. Uncle. Xian Li looked at Chun Zhao, her face bright red. Okay, I know what you want to say. That's my request. Chun Zhao shrugged. You can leave now. Xian Li stomped away. Chun Zhao added from behind. Oh, I know what you want to say. By the way, if I find out that someone had sex with you, I will crush that man's organs, no matter who that man is. Xian Li was already furious. She ran away, her face bright red. You can't take a joke, Chun Zhao said, chuckling. Fei Lai placed a plate of cut fruits before Chun Zhao. Are you joking with Xian Li? No, I'm serious. Don't you think it's too early for Xian Li to talk about this? Don't you think it'll be too late when it happens? Just then, the deer strolled over and started eating the fruits on Chun Zhao's plate. It had been 2 weeks since the deer came home. It had gradually familiarized itself with the environment. It was no longer afraid of everything in Mingyue Villa like before. Chun Zhao waved his hand, and the deer strolled toward him. It liked to be touched and enjoyed it very much. Chun Zhao stroked the deer, feeling the trace of immortal power in its body. This was what Chun Zhao had sent into its body. Just like Ellie Rodriguez Alexander, the immortal power in its body was also preserved, and it was moving all over his body. Compared to the first time it came here, the deer was much stronger. At that time, it was suffering from disease. Chun Zhao silently checked the deer's condition. He also discovered that the immortal power in the deer's body seemed to have grown stronger. Chun Zhao was surprised. Why was the immortal power in the deer so strong? This situation didn't seem to happen to Ellie Rodriguez Alexander. Chun Zhao didn't understand why this had happened. Why was the immortal energy in little deer's body so strong? There should be no reason for this to happen, right? Although the immortal power was in little deer's body, little deer didn't know how to circulate it. Why was it growing stronger in its body? And why didn't this happen to Ellie Rodriguez Alexander? What was the difference between the two? Chun Zhao fell into deep thought. Chun Zhao suddenly thought of a possibility. Animals could demonize, but humans couldn't. Transvestites didn't count. Was it possible that little deer was also demonizing? But Ellie Rodriguez Alexander definitely wouldn't become a monster or a deity because of a trace of immortal power. If Chun Zhao guessed, what would little deer become in the end? This made Chun Zhao even more curious. Would it really demonize? Chun Zhao looked at his hands. The power of yin and yang flowed between his palms. Then he carefully sent it into little deer's body. The deer suddenly fell to the ground with a thud, its body stiff. Oh no! Chun Zhao hurriedly picked up little deer. He couldn't be dead, right? Chun Zhao immediately checked little deer's body. Little deer's heart was still beating, but the power of yin and yang was creating conflict. Originally, there were 2 distinct powers in Chun Zhao's body, but in little deer's body, there were side effects. The power of yin was cosmic rays. It was chaotic and hard to control. Right now, it was continuously destroying little deer's body. The power of yang was pure immortal power. It was full of vitality. It kept repairing little deer's damaged body. It was the 2 powers that made little deer lose its ability to move and even its consciousness. Chun Zhao hurriedly guided the 2 powers. Originally, the 2 powers coexisted harmoniously in Chun Zhao's body in the form of an yin-yang fish, forming a stable state. But little deer didn't know how to control the power of yin and yang. So, Chun Zhao had to control it. However, these 2 forces were too weak. They weren't enough to form a yin-yang fish. Chun Zhao couldn't send him more power. After all, little deer's body was also weak. It couldn't handle more power. Chun Zhao slowly controlled the 2 powers so that they wouldn't run amok. No, once they left Chun Zhao's control, the 2 powers would run amok again. Should he just let them run amok? Chun Zhao hesitated. Or should he just take back the 2 powers? Chun Zhao couldn't think of a solution no matter how hard he thought. He could only take back the power of yin and yang. If he allowed the 2 powers to continue running amok, logically, the power of yin and yang should counter each other. But destroying was much easier than recovering. The power of Yin could easily wreak havoc in Little Deer's body, but the power of Yang couldn't repair Little Deer's body so quickly. So, if this situation continued, Little Deer would definitely die. Qin Zhao didn't want Little Deer to die yet, so he could only take back the power. Qin Zhao left a bit more celestial power in it and fused it with the previous strand of celestial power. Soon, the immortal power started repairing Little Deer's body. But Little Deer fell into a deep sleep. Qin Zhao couldn't continue experimenting on Little Deer now. He could only put it in his nest first. The power of Yin and Yang that he'd just distributed shouldn't be 50% each. According to the situation, Yin and Yang should be 25% and 75%. That way, when the power of Yin destroyed Little Deer, Yang could keep up with the recovery speed. But Qin Zhao himself was a perfect 55. This was because his body was strong enough. It wouldn't be destroyed or killed by the power of Yin. Chapter 1841. Qin Zhao looked around and saw Princess. Qin Zhao hesitated again. Because of that accident, Princess had been fed a demonic potion by Qin Zhao and turned into a hybrid demon. But other than a change in size, Princess didn't change much. Qin Zhao wanted test subjects now. The requirement was that the test subjects couldn't have their own energy. For example, Black Ma, White Ma, Beelzebub, Raymond, Carrie, King Kong, Abitos, and Amon weren't suitable. They all had magic power that would conflict with Qin Zhao's immortal power. Secondly, they needed a strong body. In this aspect, Princess was the strongest among all the pets. She was also the pet that could support Qin Zhao's power. Princess, come here. Princess immediately ran to Qin Zhao with her short, thick limbs. Princess was the closest to Qin Zhao. She was different from the deer. To Qin Zhao, the deer was just a test subject. It could even be used as dog food at any time. Qin Zhao didn't feel burdened at all, but Princess was like a family member. In other words, they had feelings for each other. So, Qin Zhao couldn't test it like he did with the deer. After experimenting on the deer, Qin Zhao had some experience and was more confident, so he decided to try it on Princess. Qin Zhao sent strands of Yin and Yang energy into Princess's body according to the ratio of 25% and 75%. The princess immediately sensed this energy with her keen senses. After it was sent into Princess's body, it rampaged around just like how it had been in the deer's body. However, Princess's body was many times stronger than the deer's. Because of the difference in ratio, the damage and recovery were basically the same for Princess. So, Princess didn't feel pain. She even felt comfortable. Qin Zhao realized that Princess's body seemed to have grown bigger. Moreover, the princess's muscles had also tightened. But because of her fur, her muscles weren't obvious. Princess's front paws slammed on the ground, creating a crack. Qin Zhao was surprised. The crack wasn't caused by pure power. It was more like some special power. Princess should be able to accept more Yin and Yang energy. Qin Zhao thought. At the same time, he sent a strand of Yin and Yang energy. Just then, Princess's growth became even more obvious. Princess's weight was already 2,000 kilograms. At this moment, its physique had grown tremendously. Qin Zhao took out an electronic scale. It was specially modified from a cow scale. It could even weigh a few thousand kilograms of weight. Princess stepped onto the electronic scale. A number immediately appeared on the electronic scale. 2,878 kilograms. Qin Zhao exclaimed. The princess's growth was too obvious. Just like that, he gained about 800 kilograms out of nowhere. Princess, do you have any special abilities? The princess howled twice. There is. Ow. The princess nodded. Can I use it here? Ow, ow. The princess shook her head. Then let's go to the courtyard. Qin Zhao and the princess stood face to face. Use it on me. Tilting her head, Princess looked at him hesitantly. Princess never attacked him. This was the loyalty of the princess. It didn't understand why Qin Zhao wanted it to attack it. Although the princess was very smart, there were some requests that conflicted with her principles, so her brain couldn't function properly. Forget it. Attack that tree. Chen Zhao pointed at a dwarf tree in the yard. Chen Zhao had spent tens of thousands of dollars to transplant this tree. Of course, it wasn't an expensive plant. It was just beautiful. Princess didn't have much sympathy for this dwarf tree. She slammed her claws on the ground. Hiss! A tearing sound spread out. Immediately, Chen Zhao felt a wave of power being released along the sound. The power that Princess released was channeled through the ground. However, it didn't spread out like lightning. Instead, it formed a straight line. Crack! The dwarf fir tree, several meters away, suddenly split in half. It was as if Princess was born to use this power. The new power she'd obtained was different from Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao had also obtained an unfamiliar power before. But after he obtained it, he didn't know how to use it at first. He had to explore and practice on his own to slowly familiarize himself with it. But Princess did it directly. Of course, this was probably because of her animal nature. But Chen Zhao was more curious about the mechanism by which Princess obtained this power. It wasn't the mechanism itself, but the process of obtaining the power. How was it triggered? Beelzebub had once said that after demonization, creatures had a certain chance of obtaining special abilities. But Princess had never obtained special abilities before. So this didn't count as awakening a special ability? If this was a special ability after demonization, then, in other words, after the princess demonized, she already had this ability. Now, after using the yin and yang energy, this ability was revealed. It wasn't hard to confirm the mechanism of obtaining this ability. Walter and White Snow were also half-demons. After experimenting on Princess, Chen Zhao was even more familiar with it. So, Chen Zhao was confident that he could complete the experiment while ensuring Walter and White Snow's safety. Chen Zhao called White Snow to his side first. The entire process was like Princess. However, White Snow's body was far from Princess. It could only withstand 1/5 of Princess energy at most. Chen Zhao sent the yin and yang energy into White Snow's body. White Snow's body shook violently. Then it split into two and became 2 snowies. Then 2 became 4. Chen Zhao looked at White Snow's transformation in surprise. Doppelganger? Was this its special ability? Chen Zhao did the same experiment on Walter's body. Chen Zhao realized that Walter could actually teleport, but it wasn't the kind where he could appear a dozen or dozens of meters in a flash. His body flickered very slightly, perhaps only a meter away, but the frequency was very fast. Chen Zhao had encountered enemies who could flash before, but he never seen someone flash so frequently. If one didn't observe closely, one would only think that Walter was running fast and not teleporting. Was this evolution? Chen Zhao didn't know whether it was evolution or mutation. Walter, the princess, and Snow White were all born with knowledge. It seemed like they didn't need to practice or others to teach them. They already knew and mastered their special abilities. Oh, the 5 tiger generals and dolphins family seemed to be able to undergo the same enhancement. Chen Zhao didn't care how much celestial power he had to pay. It wouldn't cost much in the first place. Plus, with so much celestial power, it would only take a few days of cultivation. Chen Zhao wanted to see what special abilities the 5 tiger generals and dolphins family would obtain. Chapter 1842. But Chen Zhao still hesitated, because they weren't half demons. The 5 tiger generals and the dolphin family weren't demons. Back then, Chen Zhao had turned Princess and Snow White into half-demons, because they'd been on the verge of death. Demonization was an irreversible process. Plus, it wasn't completely safe every time. So, after thinking for a long time, Chen Zhao gave up on the idea. At night, Chen Zhao rose to an altitude of 50,000 meters again. Chen Zhao tried to fly higher, but he still couldn't escape the restraints of oxygen. Chen Zhao could absorb the oxygen in the small world, but once he reached a vacuum environment, the oxygen in the small world would completely disappear. Chen Zhao couldn't absorb it even if he wanted to. By then, he would have to hold his breath. 50,000 meters was a relatively easy altitude. He couldn't go any higher. Plus, the higher the altitude, the stronger the cosmic rays. Chen Zhao didn't need that much strength right now. This had basically become a daily routine for Chun Zhao, but he couldn't absorb cosmic rays endlessly. Chun Zhao needed to maintain a balance between yin and yang. The amount of celestial power he absorbed was the same amount of cosmic rays. As Chun Zhao absorbed more and more cosmic rays, his body was almost covered in a layer of high-energy light. Chun Zhao's body was almost covered in a layer of high-energy light, like a ball of light. Suddenly, Chun Zhao sensed something. He raised his head and looked up. Space station? Did the space station find him? At the same time, the astronauts in the space station were reporting to the ground. ISS Alpha. It is now 1:23 a.m. New York time. We are 30,000 meters above the Pacific Ocean at coordinates 33. 1555 E118. 72004N, and we have discovered a high-energy light source. We are unable to determine the specific origin of the object. The object has strong cosmic radiation. Just then, the headquarters of many stations on the ground received this information. Because the location was above American territorial waters, NASA naturally reported this to the Department of Defense. Apart from space shuttles, the only plane that could fly at this altitude was the Night Owl. The Night Owl, B-1, was also the highest plane in the world. It was a combination of fighter and bomber. It could reach a height of 60,000 meters and a top speed of Mach 2. 5. After receiving the order from the Air Force of the Department of Defense, a Night Owl flew toward the sea. Malone Williamston and the co-pilot Heckman's Prin were nervous. After all, they were facing an unknown. Even the instructions given to them by the Air Force Command were vague. Soon, they discovered a high-energy light source in the distance. This is Nightingale B1, serial number S21. We have arrived above the area where the incident occurred. We can see the high-energy light source with the naked eye. Air Force Command, please issue an order. I repeat, can you communicate with the other party through radio waves? I've tried to communicate with him, but he didn't respond. Launch a Stinger missile at this object. Please repeat, do you want us to attack the object? Yes, you heard me right. Attack the object. This was the habit of the Americans. They would always launch probing attacks on unknown objects in the sky above their territory. This was mainly because after September 11th, the United States was overly nervous about its territorial security. Even if it was a commercial airliner, once it deviated from its course, it would be regarded as a threat and shot down. Target locked. Please confirm the missile strike command again. Attack. Malone and Heckman's Prin looked at each other and exchanged glances. Malone activated the missile lock-on system. Fire 2 Stinger L-12s. Suddenly, Chun Zhao felt Nightingale and the missile flying toward him. Fuck! Chun Zhao cursed and moved instantly. This wasn't an RGP missile. Stinger L-12 was an airborne missile. The Stinger L-12 speed reached Mach 5. Most aircrafts couldn't avoid the Stinger L-12's pursuit. Chun Zhao realized that the two missiles were moving extremely fast. He suddenly lowered his altitude and exploded with speed. However, the two missiles were still locked onto Chun Zhao. Serial number S21. Report the strike result. Stinger L-12 is tracking the target. It hasn't hit the target yet. The target moves very fast and is very strong in the air. The two missiles were almost at the same speed as him. However, Chun Zhao didn't plan on destroying the two missiles. Instead, he played hide-and-seek with them. There were very few people who could compete with him in this game of speed. Chun Zhao kept performing various actions in the air. It wasn't just the two missiles. Even a plane was tracking him. Chun Zhao had an idea. He suddenly did a backflip in the air and flew toward the Nightingale. Oh no! That object is coming toward us. Dodge, dodge. The two missiles tailed Chun Zhao and flew toward the Nightingale. Immediately, the two pilots shot out from the cockpit. Boom, boom. With two huge explosions, the Nightingale turned into a fireball and fell from the sky. Seeing that his toys were gone, Chun Zhao dove into the sea. A thought suddenly popped up in his mind. Maybe he could find a group of American airmen to play with every day. He looked up at the two parachutes slowly falling from the sky. God bless those two unlucky pilots. Chun Zhao muttered to himself, gloating. Chun Zhao gloated to himself and left via the waterway. In the water, he was even faster than on land and in the sky. Not only did the seawater not obstruct him, it even pushed him to the highest speed. Moreover, the seawater could block the surveillance of the satellites in the sky. Chun Zhao didn't care how much of an impact he'd caused today. It had nothing to do with him anyway. Right now, both the International Space Station and the American Air Force were in an uproar. To Chun Zhao, being captured by the International Space Station was an accident. He really wanted to shoot down all the satellites in the sky, but he knew that it was impossible. Even the lowest low Earth orbit satellite was hundreds of kilometers from the ground. There were even higher ones, such as the International Space Station. At its lowest, it was more than 300 kilometers from the ground. For now, Chun Zhao couldn't fly that high, but he believed that one day he would be able to use his body to challenge extreme heights. As for traveling in the sky, it could only stay in Chun Zhao's mind for now. He'd gone too far just now. It was probably 2,000 kilometers from his shore. Chun Zhao silently returned to Mingyue Villa. Suddenly, he saw a cruise stop on the sea. Chun Zhao was a bit surprised. Why would the cruise stop at such a remote place? Nine Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1843. The ship definitely wouldn't stop in the deep waters before reaching the port. This was because it was a very dangerous thing to do. The size of the cruise ship was too big. It could be knocked over by the waves when it stopped. A ship could have 3,000 to 4,000 people, including the crew. They could face this danger at any time. So, the ship would only stop at the port. The waves at the port would definitely be small. Moreover, there were ropes to secure the ship and protect it. Because of this, Chun Zhao stopped to observe the ship. It wasn't that Chun Zhao was a professional. It was just that when he'd bought the ship, the professionals had told him about this. Just then, a small boat approached the ship. Chun Zhao was in the water, but he could still see the people climbing up from the boat. He knew a few of them. They were from the psionic team. The Blue Giant, the cruise ship, was 368 meters long and 55 meters wide, with a capacity of 4,500 passengers. But right now, the ship was suffering from a disaster. Chill, don't make a sound. A man forcefully covered the mouth of a woman whose face was full of tears. The two of them were hiding in a narrow cabin. The man was also very nervous and terrified. The small cabin was filled with a terrifying atmosphere. I'll let go of your mouth now. Don't make a sound, understand? The woman nodded slightly. Jack let go of the woman's mouth. She didn't make a sound. The two hid in the cabin in fear. Occasionally, the sound of heavy objects colliding could be heard from the cabin's metal door. The woman held a silver cross in her hand. She mumbled something as if she was praying. Jack glanced at her. Are you a tourist? The woman nodded and glanced at Jack. He was wearing a sailor suit. It seemed that he was a crew member. I'm Jack. What's your name? Maeve. Do you have a communicator or something? Jack asked. Maeve took out her phone. Yes, but there's no signal. Jack's face was filled with disappointment. Maeve trembled. What was that? I don't know. I don't know. Jack shook his head. Just 2 hours ago, the Blue Giant was suddenly attacked by unknown creatures. There were many of them, and they were cruel and bloodthirsty. They even started a massacre on the ship. They were like demons that had crawled out of hell, wantonly slaughtering defenseless humans. Suddenly, a horrifying and distorted black face peered through the window. Jack and Maeve's scalps were about to explode. They all hid under the door, not daring to make the slightest sound. The demon didn't notice Jack and Maeve right under his nose. After a few more glances, he turned around and left. At this time, 2 voices came from outside. It was a language they had never heard before. At this moment, the silver cross in Maeve's hand suddenly felt a burning sensation. Maeve immediately covered her mouth, her other hand holding the cross tightly. She was afraid that she would cry out in pain, but at the same time, she did not dare to throw the cross away. This small cross seemed to be her only support. Jack stood up carefully and glanced outside. At this moment, the face that should have left reappeared. Jack met Jonah's eyes. Then, a claw pierced through the hatch in Jack's chest. Maeve covered her mouth, her face full of fear and panic. He curled up in a corner, not daring to make sound. Jack's body was trembling, but from beginning to end, he did not look at Maeve. This might be his last responsibility as a man. His heart was pulled out by the demon, and his body slowly fell to the ground. The demon outside scratched the hatch with its claws. Maeve's body was already stiff. The hatch was directly cut open, and Maeve finally saw the full appearance of the demon who killed Jack. The demon's skin was dark, with a pair of protruding horns on his head, red pupils, and pointed ears. However, the most impressive thing about him was his hands. All 10 of his fingers were long and slender claws. His left hand was also holding a heart, Jack's heart. The demon licked his lips, took a deep breath with his hooked nose, and then began to look around the cabin. Maeve found that the demon did not seem to see her. His eyes swept over her body, but did not linger on her body. This made Maeve very surprised. Why is this? Could it be because of this cross pendant of hers? The demon's mouth made strange syllables. At this moment, the wind suddenly rose in the cabin. Maeve subconsciously shrank, and there was a subtle sound of friction under her feet. The demon's pupils shrank, and he suddenly looked at Maeve's position. But he still could not see Maeve. He smelled the scent of a second person in the cabin. He also heard the sound just now. The demon tilted his head and kept looking at the corner at Maeve's position. The demon began to walk in Maeve's direction and then reached out. Maeve was so frightened that she threw the cross directly at the demon. In an instant, Maeve's figure was revealed, and the cross hit the demon's face. The demon let out an unbearable howl of pain. The cross was like a branding iron, leaving a cross mark directly on his face. Maeve took the opportunity to quickly crawl out of the cabin with her limbs. The desire to survive made her extremely fast, but after a few steps, she saw the corpses lying on the ground. The demon had come out of the cabin, his face full of rage. The cross mark on his face was very obvious. Run, keep running. The demon licked his lips. The demon's human language was not very smooth, but Maeve could understand it. The demon's face was full of mockery. He wanted to talk about being a mouse. Maeve suddenly turned and rushed around the corner. The next moment, Maeve suddenly grabbed the cross. Stealth, stealth, stealth. The demon came to the corner and did not see her. The demon strolled past in front of Maeve. But after 2 steps, he stopped and turned to look at Maeve, a cruel smile on his face. Maeve's face was extremely pale. She did not know if she was invisible or not. You deceive my eyes, but you can't deceive my nose. The demon came in front of Maeve again. Maeve could smell the disgusting stench of the demon. The demon opened his mouth, revealing a mouth full of fangs. His breath was so close. Maeve gripped the cross tightly. Give him another one? Should I give him again? Suddenly, the demon's movement stopped, and he froze in place. Slowly, the demon's body leaned forward and fell in front of Maeve. Maeve shrank back in fear and looked down. There was an arrow in the back of the demon's head. Maeve looked in the other direction of the aisle in shock. She saw a hooded woman standing at the end of the aisle, holding a small crossbow in her hand. Chapter 1844. Maeve collapsed to the ground. The hooded woman walked over and looked down at Maeve. Just then, a few more people came from the other side of the aisle. Fritz looked at Maeve and stretched out his hand. Can you stand up? Maeve slowed down and looked at the people in front of her with a pale face. Who are you? Fritz helped Maeve up. Someone who specializes in this kind of problem. Maeve suddenly broke down. Why did this happen? Why? For Maeve, what happened here was like a nightmare. Clatter, clatter. Just then, there was a dense sound from the front of the aisle. Then, a demon with a wooden staff appeared at the corner of the aisle. The demon was wearing a tattered robe and was extremely skinny, not even as strong as an ordinary person. There was only one eye on his face, no nose, and no teeth in his mouth. He made strange syllables. He was surrounded by very small demons. Those little demons were only the size of a fist, and their bodies were like balls, with only a mouth full of fangs and short limbs. These little demons were very good at climbing. They could climb onto walls or ceilings, and their movements were very fast and agile. The skinny demon pointed his wooden staff at the crowd. The group of little demons suddenly charged at the crowd. Burner of the wilderness, reveal your true form. Samira quickly used ancient god magic, and a fiery, ethereal blocked in front of the crowd. The little demons pounced at the fiery ethereal, but before they could get close, they were blocked by the scorching heat and were easily roasted to the ground. The fiery ethereal closed in on the skinny demon. The skinny demon pointed his wooden staff at the ethereal, but before he could release magic, the staff had already been ignited. The temperature around the ethereal was very high. Let's go. We'll follow behind, Samira said. With the ethereal leading the way, the whole process was very smooth. Occasionally, demons that popped up from a corner were instantly burned to ashes. Maeve was completely shocked. There was actually such a supernatural thing in this world. Demon. Magic. So weak. As soon as Samira finished speaking, the ethereal was suddenly smashed by a figure that suddenly rushed out. It was a muscular monster, a tall demon. This demon's body wasn't very large. It could only be said to be sturdy. He was 2 meters tall, and his head was 2 to 3 times the size of a normal person. He had a pair of bull horns on his forehead. It had almost no neck, and below its head was its shoulders. Its skin was bright red, and its body was so strong that it looked like hundreds of muscles were piled together. The muscular devil, let out a strange laugh. Roar! The tank roared and rushed towards the muscular demon. Pong! The arms of the tank and the muscular devil pushed against each other as they wrestled with each other. Tank's body was no smaller than this muscular demon, and his strength was similar. However, everyone had calm expressions on their faces because they were able to match this muscular demon without even transforming into a tank. Therefore, in their opinion, the tank would definitely win. The muscular demon suddenly let out a painful howl. Both of his arms were broken by the tank. Tank head butt the muscular devil on the head. The muscular devil instantly lost the ability to resist and fell to the ground. However, the next moment, more muscular demons appeared in front of them. Countless, densely packed, muscular devils. Tank roared again. His body suddenly grew, reaching a height of 3 meters. Violent crushing. The tank charged forward in a berserk manner. He ran from the original spot to the end of the corridor. The muscular devils along the way were all crushed by the tank. Maeve looked at the tank in shock. Was he still human? She had thought that it would be a tough battle. However, she didn't expect the tank to be this strong. Nearly 100 muscular devils were crushed in an instant. So strong. Maeve looked at Tank's stalwart back in shock. Samira shook his head, his expression not relaxing at all. Not enough, not strong enough. Not enough, far from enough, Tank said the same thing. In the past, once Tank transformed, he would lose the ability to speak. He would completely lose his mind and become a crazy killing machine. But now he could still maintain his mind after transforming. The hooded woman glanced at everyone, confusion written all over her face. She was a newcomer to the psionic team. She didn't understand everyone's mentality. Mira, is it just my imagination? Ever since the first day I joined your team, you've been in a very strange state. Everyone's been training like crazy and accepting all kinds of missions. Is this the tradition of the psionic team? Because we have an enemy we must defeat, an extremely powerful one, Samira said calmly. Samira said faintly, Angelace, as long as you stay in our team, you'll have to face him one day. I've never feared any enemy, Angelace said calmly, but her eyes were filled with determination. The group continued forward, their expressions extremely serious. I feel a great evil on the left, Britt said. Then let's go that way. I hope it'll give us a greater challenge. Devils continued to appear along the way. There were mainly 3 types. One was the one Maeve had encountered at the beginning. Their claws were long and sharp, and they had powerful cutting abilities. They also moved quickly. The other 2 types were the withered devil and the muscular devil. The withered devil was a pure magic type, while the muscular devil was a pure physical type. They were 2 extremes. None of the 3 types could cause any trouble for the psionic team. The journey was very smooth. The performance hall is up ahead, Maeve said. There was originally going to be a stage performance there tonight. Half of the ship's people were in that hall. Tank directly pushed open the door to the performance hall. In an instant, an extremely pungent stench assaulted everyone's noses. Everyone couldn't help but cover their noses. As soon as they stepped into the performance hall, everyone was shocked. This was a feast of blood and flesh. Inside the large and spacious performance hall, there were hundreds of small devils. Their skin was dry and red, and they were crazily feasting on the flesh and blood on the ground. For demons stood on the stage, and they were clearly different from the other demons, not only in their forms, but also in their pressuring auras. Chapter 1845. A demon sat in the center of the stage. He was astonishingly large, at least 5 meters tall. His skin was dark red, and a pair of canine teeth protruded from his chin. Even sitting on the ground, he was still taller than the other 3 demons. The male demon was around 2 meters tall, with a pair of demon wings on his back. His eyes were completely black, and his skin was also dark gray. Beside him was a great sword that was even taller than him. The other 2 demons were female. One had an enchanting figure, and her clothes were even more revealing. Only her breasts and lower body were covered. This female demon's figure was almost the same as a normal woman's, but more seductive. She had a pair of small demon horns on her head and held a leather whip in her hand. There was also a female demon with long hair, and her face couldn't be seen clearly. She wore a white robe and looked like Sadako. However, her arms were a bit too long, and they were almost touching the ground. A few more bugs. The huge demon looked at the group of uninvited guests. I like that one. The seductive demon pointed at Tank. I can feel the power in his body. Ah, how fascinating. Maeve was already trembling in fear. The atmosphere here was completely different from before. She could even feel the nervousness of the people around her. Even they could feel the tension. That meant the situation here wasn't optimistic. The demon with one hand on the greatsword looked at the crowd. My children, go enjoy fresh meat. The big-headed demons turned to look at the crowd, and terrifying sounds came from their mouths. There were probably close to 1,000 big-headed demons in the performance hall. Every big-headed demon's eyes emitted a cruel and bloodthirsty light. Maeve subconsciously hid at the back of the crowd. Go, the greatsword demon ordered. In an instant, all the big demons charged at the crowd. Angelaise spread her arms like a swan goose, and at the same time performed a beautiful somersault in the air. While in the air, the crossbow in her hand instantly fired a series of arrows. Swish, swish, swish. Angelaise might not be the strongest, but her killing efficiency was definitely the highest. In an instant, 6 big-headed demons were shot in the eye sockets, and they were instantly killed. Tank's crushing killing method wasn't as effective as before. These big-headed demons seemed to be very resistant to force, and their bodies were very soft and elastic. Tank threw a punch with all his might, but it only bounced off the big-headed demon. It didn't pose a fatal threat. The scene was in chaos, and no one cared about Maeve's safety anymore. No one had the time to go out of their way to protect Maeve. Maeve had never been part of their plan. Suddenly, a big-headed demon lunged at Maeve. Maeve fell to the ground in fright. She could do nothing but cover her head. Puff! Maeve heard a strange muffled sound. She waited a few seconds, but didn't feel any pain. Maeve glanced around and found that there was another person beside her. It was an Asian man. The man glanced at her, then pulled a chair over and sat down. He crossed his legs as if he was enjoying a performance. Who are you? To watch the show, Chun Zhao answered. These demons reminded him of the demons from Bermuda. If it really was a demon from Bermuda, then the frequency of their activities was really high. Moreover, this was probably not the first or second time he had created such a tragedy. Maeve also kept her distance from Chun Zhao. The man's arrival was too sudden. Moreover, he seemed to have an uninvolved attitude. He didn't look like he was going to help the psionic team at all. Angelaise, Samira, Brits, and Tank were all very powerful. There were many big-headed demons, but they could only cause some trouble for them. Apart from draining their magic power, they didn't have any other effect. Enough. Leave. The Greatsword Fiend was a terror fiend, and these big-headed fiends were his subordinates. He didn't want all his subordinates to die. Angelace, Samira, Brits, and Tank didn't notice Chun Zhao's arrival. Instead, the 4 demons in the center of the stage noticed him. The 4 people from the psionic team noticed the 4 demons' gazes. They couldn't help but turn toward the door. Instantly, hostility filled the air. Only Angelace looked at Chun Zhao, confused. She didn't know him at all. "What are you doing here?" Britz's tone was filled with hostility and wariness. "You guys better focus on the 4 demons," Chun Zhao said calmly. "They don't look easy to deal with." "Who is he?" Angelace asked, confused. "Hey, miss, don't you know me? I'm your enemy. Of course, I won't do anything before you attack, but I won't save you when you're in danger either. You can treat me as a spectator now." Just then, the terror demon suddenly spread its wings and slashed down at Chun Zhao's head with its giant sword. Chun Zhao clamped the sword between 2 fingers, making it hard for the demon to move. "Do you know Patton?" The demon's pupils constricted. Chun Zhao saw its gaze. "Looks like I know him." Chun Zhao loosened his fingers, and the demon took 2 steps back. "They're your enemies. At least, I won't do anything before you kill them." Chun Zhao wouldn't be kind enough to help them share the danger. Chun Zhao wanted all 4 of them to die. Suddenly, Brits launched a sneak attack at the demon with its back to him. The demon flapped its wings and blocked Britz's sneak attack. "Tank, don't hold back. Go all out," Brits warned. Tank exploded with 100% rage. In an instant, he turned into a 5-meter giant. He charged at the demon with all his might. The demon's expression changed slightly, and it slashed at Tank with its giant sword. But when the sword hit Tank's fist, not only did it not cut through Tank's fist, but it was deflected by Tank's fist energy instead. Tank roared and pounced, pinning the demon to the ground. 1 punch, another punch, and another punch. Tank attacked like crazy. Each of his punches carried a destructive power. "He looks much stronger than last time," Chun Zhao thought. Seeing that it couldn't beat Tank, the demon immediately called for help. "Hurry and save me." Just then, Angelace, Brits, and Samira each chose an opponent. They left the demon to Tank. Tank had become stronger, but his fighting style hadn't changed at all. It was still full of violence and madness. Chapter 1846. Brits was facing the demon that looked like Sadako alone. The white-clothed demon's figure was erratic. Once she moved, she slithered around like a snake. It was hard for Brits to catch her figure. It was as if she had no bones under her white clothes. Every time Brits shot a spell, it was about to hit. But the white-clothed demon could always twist into an unimaginable shape and avoid Brits' spells. Nevertheless, the white-clothed demon couldn't get close to Brits either. The 2 were in a strange stalemate. Or perhaps neither was using their full strength. On the other hand, Angelace and Samira were working together to fight against the bewitching whip demon. The whip in the leather demon's hand waved in an impenetrable manner. When the whip landed on the ground, it tore a ghastly crack in the ground. Angelace and Samira didn't dare to touch the whip at all. If they touched it, their skin and flesh would be cut off. Angelace's bow and crossbow seemed to be a part of her. Any movement, any angle, could make a shooting motion. Moreover, every arrow was extremely accurate. Even the whip demon often had to rely on the whip to defend and block the crossbow bolts. Samira summoned the blood spirit. The large amount of flesh here made her spell extremely powerful. The blood spirit was made of blood, but its appearance wasn't distorted. It looked more like a fierce red beast. The whip demon's whip swept across the blood spirit. It caused great damage to the blood spirit, but the blood spirit could recover in the blink of an eye. It had to be said that the environment here gave Samira a home ground advantage. The battle between the tank and the sword-wielding terror demon was the most intense. The tank's rage grew and gradually suppressed the terror demons. The battle between the 2 messed up the entire theater. Neither side gave way to the other. Maeve watched in awe. It was different from the one-sided suppression before. The 2 were evenly matched, so the battle was especially intense. Maeve glanced at Chun Zhao again. She realized that he'd taken out a beer from somewhere and was drinking it. He was really watching the show. Aren't you going to help? No matter what grudges you had with them before, at least now you should be the enemy of those monsters. If they lose, you will have to face those terrible monsters alone, Maeve said. Chun Zhao glanced at Maeve. I hope they're all dead. Chun Zhao stated his goal honestly. It wasn't convenient for Chun Zhao to attack, but that didn't mean he didn't want them dead. If the 4 of them died here, it would be a huge blow to the psionic team. The battle seemed to be balanced, but in reality, it was not stable. As Tank's rage meter soared, his combat power also increased in a straight line. Pung! With a loud bang, Tank's fist smashed the Terror Demon's greatsword into pieces. At the same time, the Terror Demon was sent flying. Tank roared. He didn't chase after the Terror Demon first. Instead, he looked in Chun Zhao's direction. He seemed to have lost his mind, but in his mind, there was another voice reminding him. Suddenly, Tank came to his senses. If it was in the past, tanks would definitely not be able to maintain their rationality when their rage level reached 80%. But now, when Tank's rage value was close to 90%, he actually regained his sanity. A crazed, mindless monster and a rational monster were 2 different concepts. Tank turned to look at the huge demon. The demon stood up. He was even taller than the transformed Tank. With a roar, Tank charged at the demon at a shocking speed. The giant demon raised its palm to block the Tank's brutal punch. He was much stronger than Tank. Tank's fist was grabbed by the demon, and then he swung it out. Tank's body was sent flying like a cannonball, crashing into the wall behind him. Chun Zhao suddenly stood up. The demon's aura was very similar to King Kong's. They were both subordinates of the King of Power. Chun Zhao stared at the enormous demon, his eyes shining. King Kong had once said that if he wanted to strengthen his body, he had to gather the blood of 100 subordinates of the King of Power. He had to use the blood of the King of Power subordinates to strengthen his body. The demon noticed Chun Zhao's gaze. That gaze made him uncomfortable. It was a naked desire. It was like a hunter and his prey. The demon had wanted to get rid of the other humans first. Then he would attack Chun Zhao. But Chun Zhao's gaze made him uncomfortable. Just now, Chun Zhao had caught the Terror Demon's sword with 2 fingers. It was clear that Chun Zhao was far more powerful than the Terror Demon. The demon felt that he was more powerful than the Terror Demon. But he had to be careful with Chun Zhao. The giant demon's body began to be covered with a layer of metallic skin, like indestructible armor. Chun Zhao suddenly took out a huge container and placed it on the ground. The demon stomped with both feet, bringing with it a gust of wind. Whoosh! It felt like a mountain was pressing down on her. Whether it was her or Chun Zhao, they were like ants in front of that mountain. What the giant demon possessed was pure power. However, Chun Zhao was a bit surprised by the aura he had. It was so solid that Chun Zhao didn't understand. The aura seemed to increase the demon's power by 100 times. But the number of demons was still too low. 1 times 100 was still a world of difference from 10,000. Maeve's vision blurred. Then she saw the demon's arm break. The demon's body was pressed to the ground. Her eyes couldn't follow Chun Zhao's movements. Chun Zhao lifted the demon's severed arm and placed it on the container. Maeve felt her scalp go numb. Meanwhile, the battle on the other side had also changed due to the drastic changes here. No matter if it was the psionic team or the demons, they were all stunned as they looked at the gigantic demon that was instantly defeated. The demon was the strongest among them. It wasn't just a difference in power, but also in level. But the demon had been defeated so easily. They didn't even understand what had happened to the demon. Even the demon's brain was in a state of shock. It was an absolute and defenseless suppression. The demon struggled to stand up several times, but Chun Zhao pressed him back to the ground. His strength was being drained away, and his blood was being forced out. The more blood he lost, the stronger he was. Can you tell me where your master is? Chun Zhao asked in demon language. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor, you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.